Chapter 215. You're the one who's dead. June Moxie glared at him. This godly doctor has already taken action. How can anyone else decide whether he lives or dies? At this moment, Hai Chen Feng walked out of the secret room with a calm face. Solitary Eagle was about to refute June Moxie when he suddenly opened his eyes wide and opened his mouth. Just a moment ago, a person who was half dead and looked like he might die at any time was carried in. 2 hours later, he actually walked out alive and well. Even a godly doctor can't be that fast, right? This world is crazy. Did I just see a ghost today? Healed. Solitary Eagle rubbed his eyes, completely healed. And your strength has been restored. Completely healed. Hai Chen Feng was still angry with Solitary Eagle, and replied with a calm face, "Thank you for your concern, Uncle Eagle. Chen Feng's strength has been restored with the help of this godly doctor." "Then why are you still keeping a straight face? Why are you keeping a straight face? Fuck your master, can't you be a bit more respectful? Do you know how much I've endured in order to save you? You bastard." Solitary Eagle's pent-up anger had finally erupted, and now that there was a suitable target in front of him, he couldn't wait to explode. Hai Chen Feng's calm face didn't even have time to reply when Solitary Eagle pounced on him, grabbed him, and brought him to the courtyard. His fists rained down like a torrential rain, and his legs rained down like a gale as he madly beat him. This scene of abuse happened to be right in front of Fatty Tang, who was paralyzed on the ground. Fatty's legs had just accumulated a bit of strength, but he was scared out of his wits. His body had just stopped sweating, but now he was sweating again. Tang Yuan's eyebrows twitched as he watched this scene, and the muscles on his face twitched in fright. "A long time passed, have you had enough?" June Moxie shouted. "I've had enough. I'm finally satisfied." The Solitary Eagle punched and kicked Hai Chen Feng a few more times before he finally stopped. Hai Chen Feng's entire body was covered in cuts and bruises. His face looked like a giant panda singing a Beijing opera. "If you're done, hurry up and send him out to do some work. This young master has a use for him." June Moxie replied snappily. "No matter what, Hai Chen Feng is still one of my people. You're beating him in front of me. How can I put my face in front of you?" Hai Chen Feng felt as if he had just been pardoned. He crawled up despite the pain in his body, and disappeared like a wisp of smoke. June Moxie turned to look at Solitary Eagle and was about to say something when suddenly, a sharp cry rang out, startling both of them. The little lowly Kuer carefully walked over with a cup of tea, but suddenly discovered something. "Young master, not good, not good." The little lowly panicked. "What happened?" "It's young Master Tang." "Young Master Tang, he fainted." Kuer pointed at young Master Tang in a panicked manner. She saw Tang Yuan lying limply on the ground. The fat on his body was no longer trembling. It turned out that he had already lost consciousness. What happened? June Moxie walked forward in bewilderment. No one did anything to him. How could he have fainted? June Moxie moved closer to take a pulse. The expression on his face suddenly became very interesting. He was tongue-tied as he looked around. What's going on? He sweated so much that he became dehydrated. This is very rare. Sweating so much that he became dehydrated. Tang Dashao was really talented. There was hope for him to lose weight this time. This was the first time that June Dashao had seen such a thing in his previous life. He didn't know if he was lucky or unlucky. Fatty's weight was measured the next day, and he had unexpectedly lost 5 pounds. Losing 5 pounds in one day was simply a miracle in the history of weight loss. The young Master June was flustered. He managed to get Tang Mo into the house with great difficulty. Fortunately, the young Master June had made a breakthrough a few days ago. Otherwise, the young Master June wouldn't have been able to move Tang Mo's weight and bulk. Fatty's weight and bulk were great. However, his courage wasn't that great. The great master eagle hadn't done anything to him, but he had already scared himself into a semi-conscious state. Jun Dashao knew that this guy wasn't actually in any danger. So, he pulled his mouth open and poured a few spoonfuls of cold water mixed with salt into it. He should have used ginseng soup to deal with Fatty's dehydration. However, he didn't have the time for that. In any case, the effect of salt water was the same. It was too nourishing for Fatty. After solving the problem of dehydration, Jun Dashao threw the dizzy Fatty onto the bed. Then, he came out after making sure that he was all right. After all, the solitary eagle was still waiting there. He wanted to speak, but was too embarrassed to do so. It was very interesting. After all, he was one of the 8 great masters. It wouldn't be good to keep him waiting. Besides, a dignified great master was asking a young man for advice on martial arts. It was indeed a bit, this world is really crazy. Huh? Is there anything else? Jun Dashao asked knowingly. It was clear that he wanted to see how the solitary eagle would open his mouth to ask for advice from a junior. Today, I was fortunate enough to meet your master. Your master's cultivation is exquisite. He is truly a genius. This old man and I have talked for a long time. We appreciate each other's talents. We regret not having met earlier. We have become close friends. The solitary eagle smacked his lips. He thought for a long time. Then, he finally came up with an opening speech. It had to be said that this opening speech was quite in line with the solitary eagle's status. Of course, the premise was that Jun Dashao wasn't the young Master Jun. So, he didn't understand the whole story. Oh. Jun Dashao's belly almost burst from laughing. But, his face was full of curiosity. It seemed as if he was saying, so that's how it is. The solitary eagle's spirit was roused. He said, we had a very pleasant conversation. Then, your master talked about you as a disciple. Your master was very helpless. He said that he had passed on the flying eagle technique to you. But, you were very talented. But, you were lazy by nature. So, you couldn't understand the inner workings of the technique. Today, he coincidentally met me. As everyone knows, I am the person who has studied the soaring eagle art the most in the world. Therefore, he asked me to come here and give you some pointers. The more the solitary eagle spoke, the more it seemed as if he was speaking the truth. In fact, he was almost convinced that he was telling the truth. This old man is also very busy. But, it's hard to find a close friend in life. So, I have no choice but to reluctantly help him teach his disciple. Jun Dashao hung his head down. It seemed as if he was listening attentively. But, he was pinching his nose with one hand. He was trying to regulate his breathing. His other hand was covering his stomach. He was taking deep breaths. He was on the verge of suffering from internal injuries. The solitary eagle spoke in a dignified manner. Then, he waved his hand. Then, he said in a careless tone, you go out now. Practice the flying eagle technique that your master passed on to you. This old man wants to see where you've gone wrong. The sooner this old man is done, the sooner I can return to the prairie. I've already stayed here for a long time. And, I've already delayed many important matters. Ah. That old eagle, where did you make a mistake? Jun Moxie opened his eyes wide. He said in surprise, just last month, my master told me that my flying eagle technique, spirit eagle movement technique, sword art, saber art, palm art, fist art, and claw art have all reached a high level. He has nothing else to teach me. Why did he ask you to come here? Moreover, although I'm not talented, I've always been diligent. How could I be lazy? Back then, my master also saw this in me. That's why he accepted me as his disciple. Did he really tell you that? The solitary eagle was speechless. He didn't know what was going on. Suddenly, he glared at him and said, "Your master was probably being humble." I misunderstood. But, you should know that you can learn from others. In this aspect, I'm the professional. Don't you admit this? June Moxie looked embarrassed, but, my master told me that I don't need to practice the flying eagle technique anymore. If I practice it again, it will only slow down my progress. He even gave me a new technique. I've only just learned it. From your words, it seems like you have a lot of things to do. How about this, old eagle, you go back first. There's no need to trouble yourself. My master never tests my techniques. I'll just say that you've already given me pointers. How about this? I'll be relaxed. You'll also be able to save energy. It'll be convenient for everyone. The solitary eagle opened his eyes wide and didn't say anything for a long time. A supreme martial artist wanted to give pointers to someone, but was actually rejected. What kind of world is this? Is there any justice in this world? The solitary eagle suddenly felt that the world had been turned upside down. He thought back to when he was young. In order to receive pointers from an Earth Xian expert, he had waited for a long time. In the end, that person had said a few words as if he was giving out alms. Then, he felt as if he had received a treasure. Even when he was eating and walking, he would ponder over the profound mysteries within his heart. As for finding a supreme martial artist to give him pointers, he would laugh even in his dreams. What's wrong with this world? Could it be that the current trend is for a master to beg his disciple to learn from him? Ahem, actually it's like this. The solitary eagle had no other choice but to speak the truth. He was afraid that he would be even more humiliated if he continued to insist. So that's how it is. Why didn't you say so earlier? June Moxie nodded his head in understanding. He laughed in his heart. Do you think it's that easy to take advantage of me? Then we'll talk about it when I have time. Aren't you very busy? June Dashao had a look of consideration for the solitary eagle. I'm free right now. What I've said before is just a small matter. Should we start now? The supreme eagle's spirit was roused. I'm saying wait for me when I have time. I'm really tired right now. June Moxie said, moreover, since you're close friends with that old man, why doesn't he teach you himself? Why does he need me to do it for him? He's obviously trying to be lazy. He's squeezing my labor. If I teach him well, he'll owe me a favor. If I fail, I'll have to take the blame. This kind of thing, not to mention using me to work for him, there's no benefit at all. That old man is really treacherous. I won't do it. The solitary eagle was really dumbfounded this time. He didn't expect that not only could this kid not be deceived, but he was also unmoved by force or persuasion. What should he do now? I understand your difficulties, and I also understand your feelings. Young Master June was very understanding, but also very troubled as he said, but you should also be able to see that my temperament is that I don't get up early if there are no benefits. I never do things that are not beneficial. What benefits do you want, kid? Just say it. The solitary eagle was really gritting his teeth this time. Today, he was about to go crazy because of this kid. But then, the solitary eagle's eyes widened. His eyes almost went blank. Because at this moment, June Moxie's right hand suddenly made a movement. It seemed very simple, but it wasn't simple at all. He raised his 5 fingers, and bent them like an eagle's claw. Then, he flew high in the air, and changed them again and again. His wrist and fingers were constantly changing, and every time they bent and changed, it would increase the power of his claw. But the most bizarre thing was that above the elbow, it didn't move at all. Shadowless and formless, myriad shadows and myriad forms. Even with the wide experience and high knowledge of solitary eagle, he had never seen such an ingenious move. But with his excellent eyesight, how could he not see the power of this move and the profoundness of it? If he could completely master it, Just the power of this move alone would be considered as the top martial art of the present age. Just this move alone would make his trip today worthwhile. This is one of the 9 forms of ghostly eagle. June Moxie laughed. Is it passable? Of course it's passable. 9 forms of ghostly eagle. This move really lives up to its name, unpredictable and brilliant. The solitary falcon's eyes shone brightly as he gradually digested this technique in his mind. The more he pondered over it, the more he found it to be boundless, and the more profound it became. He couldn't help but feel an unbearable itch in his heart, and once again asked, "What kind of benefits do you want? Just say it." This was the same question as before, but the tone was like heaven and earth. The previous sentence was already very impatient, but the current sentence carried a lot of urgency. It was even a little bit more like he was ready to be taken advantage of. "I don't want any benefits from you. Instead, I want to give you benefits." June Dashao smiled like a little fox. "I can help you perfect the move, and I can also help you perfect your martial art. But you have to owe me a favor. Pay attention, you owe me, not my master. These are 2 completely different things. I already owe your master, and now I have to owe you too. One thing, and I owe you 2 favors." Solitary Eagle's forehead was full of black lines, and he snorted. But then he thought that it would be worth it even if he owed a favor if he could obtain this divine skill. "In addition, you are also a great expert in this field. You should know that the study of moves, especially such a profound consummate skill, cannot be done in a day. Therefore, you will need to stay in Tianxiang City for a long period of time. We will discuss this in detail, study it slowly, explore it carefully, and calculate it bit by bit." Young Master June raised his index finger and said, "Stop." The solitary eagle felt a headache coming on. The first half is reasonable, but the second half is full of fog. "What are you trying to say, kid? Just say it. Don't beat around the bush. Let me worship you for a year, okay?" June Dashao smiled innocently and said, "My request is not high, and for this year, whether it is food, lodging, or wine, I will take care of it all." June Dashao moved forward and said, "This wine will be even better than the wine from that day. It will definitely satisfy you, you can drink it for free for a year. What do you think? In fact, even if you go to the Spirit Fog Lake to have fun, I'll pay for it. Let's talk about it, ha ha ha." The young Master June's smile was so wide that his eyes couldn't even be seen. Where would you find such good conditions in the world? Chapter 216. Solitary Eagle was so angry that he didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, he gritted his teeth and asked with an ominous glint in his eyes, "You mean, you want this old man to be your hired thug for a year? Dream on. Are you having a nightmare? You little bastard, you really dare to say anything? Ah. No no no, definitely not hired thug, you misunderstood me." June Moxie shook his head, "You only need to live here, you don't need to do anything, I only have one request." "What request? Speak quickly." Solitary Eagle's chest heaved up and down, he really couldn't resist the urge to spank this kid's butt into 8 pieces. If the June family encounters some major danger, for example, the danger of extermination. June Moxie's expression became serious. "I hope you can guarantee that after a year, the June family will still exist in this world. That's all. This kind of danger, right now, may not happen for a year, or it may happen several times a year, I don't know, but only for a year. You need time to practice and understand the eagle form, and you also need a place. You also need an opponent. You also need the necessary resources." June Moxie's expression became serious. "I can provide all of these for you, I just want to use your name to guarantee the safety of the June family for a year, that's all." Solitary Eagle restrained the anger on his face and frowned in contemplation. As long as you agree, you will be a guest of the Jun family for a year. Your position in the Jun family will even surpass that of my grandfather. No one, including me, can order you around. You can do whatever you want. You can just walk away if there's no crisis after a year. My Jun family owes you a lot. A great favor. Jun Moxie continued to speak glibly. Moreover, my master will come often during this year. This last sentence was the most important bargaining chip for Solitary Eagle. Regardless of the time, location, or the necessities of the opponent's daily life, it was not a difficult task. However, that kind of matchless expert was something that could only be found by chance. To be able to encounter such a thing once in one's life was already a great fortune. All right. Solitary Eagle's sharp eyes looked at Jun Moxie. I promise you. Awesome. Jun Moxie smiled and said, for the official success of our negotiation, how about we go to the Spirit Fog Lake tonight? Get lost. With a bang, young Master Jun danced and danced in the air like a trapeze artist. Since the beginning, Jun Moxie had been planning this step. Ever since he discovered Solitary Eagle's mistake in front of the maple forest, Jun Moxie felt that a huge pie was about to fall on his head. Although he had successfully tricked the two Xian Beast Kings to cause trouble for the Shui Han Manor, but the Shui Han Manor was too powerful, and its background was unknown. Taking a step back, even if Li Ju Tian's son was crippled, or even beaten to death, but the matter of marriage was something that could only be done with the spirit tablet. Therefore, Jun Moxie had no choice but to be on guard. Another point was that even if the trouble with the Shui Han Manor was resolved, the three Shenxian masters of the Silver Blizzard City had already arrived at the Tianxiang city. Xiao Han and Jun Wui were rivals in love, so how could they let go of such a good opportunity? They would inevitably provoke the relationship between the magnificent Jewel Hall and the Jun family. Even if they could not destroy the Jun family, they would still humiliate them. His grandfather was an important minister of the country, and he was not young anymore. If he were to be humiliated, how could he bear it? Jun Moxie had already considered this step from his own point of view. In fact, he was most worried about the Silver Blizzard City, and not the Shui Han Manor. After all, the Silver Blizzard City was only a few feet away from the Jun family, and the Jun family did not have the ability to deal with the Shenxian masters. Therefore, he must first think of a way to deal with them, so that he would not be overwhelmed when the time came. Jun Moxie's original intention was to use his identity as Jun Moxie's master to cure Hai Chen Feng, and then show him a few moves in front of the solitary falcon in order to arouse his curiosity. It must be said that the identity of Jun Moxie was much more important in front of the solitary eagle than in front of Jun Moxie. But the plans of man are always inferior to the plans of the heavens. At that critical juncture, Jun Moxie had to make a breakthrough, and had no choice but to settle for the next best thing. When he escaped into the ground, he had already simulated everything that had happened so far in his mind. He believed that he still had a high chance of success. Right now, Jun Moxie's objective had basically been achieved. Moreover, the solitary falcon is at home, and he'll be able to collect the necessary herbs for the old man's cultivation. Will the solitary falcon really sit back and watch? At that time, wouldn't the old master's supreme protectors be present? Therefore, Jun Moxie had already planned to eliminate all the hidden dangers in one fell swoop the moment he saw the Battle of the Maple Forest. And it turned out that his plan was completely feasible. Moreover, it had been a complete success. From this moment on, the crisis of the Jun family had been completely resolved by Jun Moxie. And the coming year would be the year of rapid development for the Jun family. And this was the ultimate goal of Jun Moxie's meticulous planning ever since he had obtained the Xian Dan. Now, he could finally put down the boulder in his heart. Jun Moxie had finally achieved his goal after exhausting all his schemes and means. However, the atmosphere in the magnificent Jewel Hall was gloomy and gloomy. What's going on? The three great elders, Mu Shuetong and Xiao Han were sitting together in a circle, discussing some relevant matters. With the presence of the three great elders, Mu Shuetong and Xiao Han obviously didn't dare to act rashly, and appeared to be very well behaved, especially Xiao Han. Don't be fooled by his domineering appearance in front of the three great elders. He was even more overbearing than a dog with a bald tail, but in front of the three great elders, he was more obedient than the most obedient of children. These 5 people held the highest positions in the Silver Blizzard City and the magnificent Jewel Hall. Ordinary people were not qualified to sit with them. At this moment, they saw the little princess carrying Xiao Fengwu in her arms. Even the weakest among the 5 was at the Tianxian realm. With just a glance, they could tell that Xiao Fengwu's injuries were not light and his life was in danger. How could they not be alarmed? They were naturally aware that the little princess had urged Xiao Fengwu to sneak out to play. However, since the Xian Dan had been settled, the experts from all over the Tianxiang city no longer had any intention of staying and had left. The Tianxiang city had returned to its former tranquility. Therefore, they were happy to let the 2 little guys go out for a stroll so that they wouldn't have a headache listening to their stories. Moreover, the Tianxiang city had been restored to its former state. The 2 of them were gold Xian experts and could be considered as the top experts of the Tianxiang city. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't have suffered any losses. Therefore, they turned a blind eye and pretended that they didn't know what was going on. Xiao Han was even more happy to see his nephew and the little princess get closer to each other. However, Xiao Fengwu hadn't expected that he would come back in such a distressed manner. Xiao Fengwu had been brutally beaten by someone, and had sustained serious injuries. His clothes were ragged, and his lower body was covered by a few rags. In fact, he would have been completely naked if he hadn't been covered by a few rags. Young Master Xiao could be considered as a member of the Silver Blizzard City's upper class. So, he had the protection of the snow silkworm armor. So, what kind of hatred could have enraged him to the point that he was stripped of his undergarments? Han Yanmeng felt as if she had seen her loved ones when she saw these 5 people. She threw herself into the arms of the 3rd elder, stamped her feet, and burst into tears. This delicate little girl had lived a smooth life. She had never experienced any adversity. However, she had been scared out of her wits today. The 3rd elder gently patted her back, and comforted her in a soft voice. However, his eyes were blazing with anger. Who has the guts to bully the little princess of the Silver Blizzard City? Even the old master of the Snow Wind City, Han Feng Shui, was afraid that this little granddaughter of his would melt in his mouth, and was afraid that she would fall out of his hands. Who would have thought that this is the first time I've come to the Tianxiang city? Then, they saw the clear handprint on the little princess's face. She was now weeping and weeping like a pear blossom in the rain. The 3 elders were heartbroken, and their anger couldn't be any greater. The 5 of them frowned as they examined Xiao Fengwu's injuries. That was a physical attack. His strength was concentrated, and his technique was quick. This should be a physical expert. I haven't seen a physical expert of this level in a long time. The 9th elder frowned and said as he transferred his Xian Qi into Xiao Fengwu's body to heal his injuries. The other 4 also revealed an astonished look. Only the little princess was still sobbing. Her eyes were blurred with tears, but she didn't understand the meaning of these words. So, she asked while sobbing, what is a physical attack? It's an attack that doesn't use Xian Qi. It's a technique that uses pure physical strength. The 3rd elder carefully examined Xiao Fengwu's injuries. Then, he said with a heavy expression, look at this injury. Fengwu would have been dead even if he had 9 lives if that person had used Xian Qi. From this, it can be seen that even though this person is vicious, he still has a sense of propriety. The 5 of them frowned at the same time. There was only one possibility that someone could beat Xiao Fengwu to such a state without using Xian Qi. This person's martial arts were far above Xiao Fengwu's, and their strength was at least at the level of Yu Xian or an Earth Xian. Although Yu Xian and an Earth Xian expert couldn't enter their eyes, but this person had the guts to strip Xiao Fengwu of the Silver Blizzard City's snow silkworm armor. This was enough to prove that this person wasn't simple. However, this enmity must be avenged no matter what. Little princess, don't worry. Calm your breathing, and slowly tell me what happened. Mu Shuatong said. It's too embarrassing. I'm too embarrassed to say it. Sigh. I steamed a pot of rice this morning, but when I lifted the lid, I was blown away by the steam, and my elbows got blisters. It's really shameful. But don't worry, it won't affect my writing. Hee hee. Today's second update is a bit late. Around 22 o'clock. Chapter 217. Today's second watch. We completed the task ahead of schedule, hee hee. Yes, it's like this. Han Yen Meng's voice was still choking as she spoke intermittently. She had mentioned that Feng Lin had seen a man running around naked, and that the two sides had clashed. These people were experienced and knowledgeable about the affairs of the world. So, they had already understood that the cause of this incident was probably a misunderstanding. Even an ordinary person would care about their face. So, how could they run around naked? With the cultivation of that person's martial arts, it was even more unlikely that he would run naked in the wild. So, it was most likely that the little princess and Xiao Fengwu had coincidentally intruded into that person's practice area while he was practicing. This had aroused the dissatisfaction of that person, and thus caused this disturbance. It had to be said that their thinking was very close to the truth. Does that person know where you came from? The sixth elder asked the key question. He knows, Han Yen Meng wiped her tears and said, he didn't know about it at first. That man was about to leave. But, Brother Xiao said something, and he immediately became angry. He grabbed Brother Xiao, and started to beat him. And then, he became like this. What did Fengwu say? The 5 people asked in an urgent tone. Hearing this, the 5 of them understood that the biggest problem was definitely this sentence, and it was also this sentence that had enraged the other party. Brother Xiao said, boy, the Silver Blizzard City won't let you off. Just wait for your family to be exterminated. That's what he said. Those were Senior Brother Zhao's exact words. The little princess, Han Yen Meng, vividly imitated these words. Her eyelashes were still wet with tears. She looked at the 3 elders, and it was obvious that she felt that there was something wrong with these words. The 3 elders sighed at the same time. What does it mean to be unlucky? Isn't this the case? The man has clearly shown that he's much stronger than you. But, you don't know when to stop. Instead, you threaten him in front of his face. Moreover, you want to exterminate his entire family? Even if I want to retaliate, that's a matter for the future. This boy's experience is too shallow. The 3 of them put themselves in Xiao Fengwu's shoes and asked themselves. They believed that if they had encountered such a situation, they wouldn't have let it go either. They reckoned that Xiao Fengwu was already being merciful by not taking his life. It's true that the Silver Blizzard City is famous and awe-inspiring. But, this fame is enough to crush you juniors who are new to the martial world. The 3rd elder sighed. If it wasn't for the fact that this person showed mercy and didn't kill. As he spoke to this point, his expression suddenly changed and became incomparably ugly. It was difficult for him to continue his unfinished sentence. The 6th elder, the 9th elder, and the 3rd elder had been friends for many years, and their minds were faintly connected. Their expressions turned ugly when they thought of the same thing. The 3 of them thought at the same time, if we were in that man's position, and provoked the people of the Silver Blizzard City without anyone noticing, then the only choice we could make in order to avoid the terrifying revenge of the Silver Blizzard City in the future is to silence them. Even the 3 of them had to make such a choice, however, that man hadn't done so. Not only had he not done so, but he had also spared the lives of the 2 of them. The little princess hadn't been harmed, but Xiao Fengwu had been forced into a very difficult situation. He had been humiliated in front of everyone, and had almost been crippled. This was tantamount to forming an irreconcilable enmity. He hadn't silenced them, nor had he asked for peace. Instead, it was almost like a provocation. This could only mean one thing: the opposite party didn't care about the Silver Blizzard City at all. In other words, the opposite party was confident that he wouldn't be afraid even if the experts of the Silver Blizzard City came knocking on his door. In fact, he might even have enough strength to contend against them. Therefore, he had done such a thing that was almost equivalent to a moron's doing. So, it was obvious who this person was, and what kind of strength he had behind him. After all, there weren't many forces in the world that possessed such strength. It shouldn't be the people of the Shui Han Manor. The three elders had thought of this, and so had Xiao Han. However, he had another idea in mind: the Shui Han Manor didn't show up during the fight for the Xian Dan. If the person who had injured Feng Wu was from the Shui Han Manor, then he would have left his name behind. After all, the Shui Han Manor's tyranny and arrogance was well known throughout the world. So, they wouldn't deny doing such a thing. Therefore, I don't think that the Shui Han Manor has anything to do with this. Then, who do you think did this? The sixth elder frowned. There's another family in the Tianxiang city that hates us more than any other family. A cold light flashed in Xiao Han's eyes: it's the Jun family. Only the Jun family would be so sensitive to the surname Xiao. Therefore, I believe that the Jun family must have been behind this. According to the little princess's description, that person had said, "I hate the Xiao family the most." These words indicate that this person had a grudge against the Xiao family. Then, Feng Wu revealed his identity, and was beaten up by the other party. It's basically certain that this person didn't have a grudge against the Silver Blizzard City, but he did have a grudge against the Xiao family. And this point is very obvious. Most of the people who had a grudge against the Xiao family are no longer alive. Even if there are a few, they aren't in Tianxiang City. The only person who fits this description is the Jun family's Jun Wui. Xiao Han's biggest enemy was undoubtedly Jun Wui. Therefore, he would try his best to pin the blame on the Jun family if something were to happen. He had spoken these words in a very convincing manner. But, even he knew that he was trying to shift the blame on Jun Wui and the entire Jun family. However, he had never expected that his twisted words would turn out to be the truth. This matter was done by the Jun family's people. Bullshit. Mu Shuetong became angry. Xiao Han, I knew that you were a villain, but I didn't expect you to be so despicable and shameless. These two matters are completely unrelated, and yet you want to link them to Jun Wui? Even if you have a grudge against him, you can't slander a good person like this. Then tell me, why is this person so hostile towards the Xiao family? Xiao Han didn't budge an inch. Hostile? Do you not understand? Or do you not understand that this matter was a misunderstanding from the very beginning? Everything was fine, but because your nephew was too arrogant, he provoked the other party's anger, that's all. If the Xiao family really had a grudge against him, do you think that the other party would have been lenient? Mu Shuetong said coldly. Lenient? You call that lenient? That person insulted Feng Wu in such a manner, and it's more ruthless than killing him. I can't think of anyone else in the Tianxiang city besides the Jun family, who would have such a huge grudge against the Xiao family. Moreover, the Silver Blizzard City's prestige is not to be underestimated. Xiao Han's words became increasingly convincing. Then tell me, who in the Jun family has such strength? Who in the Jun family has the strength of an Earth Xian and Yu Xian at such a young age? Mu Shuetong was so angry that he started to laugh. We have all the information about the Jun family, including their secret experts. Not a single one of them doesn't fit into our intelligence reports. That old man Jun Zhantian has the strength of Tian Xian, so it's hard to say that he didn't do this. Xiao Han argued. Everyone looked at him like he was an idiot, suspecting Grandpa Jun. Is his brain filled with water? Don't mention anything else. Even if you offer up the heads of the entire Xiao family, Grandpa Jun will never show his naked body in front of anyone. That man, That man is a young man, he can't possibly be Grandpa June, and besides, Grandpa June is a hero of his generation, he can't possibly be Grandpa June. Little Princess Han said. The little princess had often heard her sister talk about the deeds of the June family's father and son, and had a good impression of the June family. Little Yen, you don't know this, but there is a kind of disguise technique in this world that can change one's appearance to that of another person. Xiao Han knew that his words were hard to convince, but he still tried to defend himself. That's right, Jun Wui has the strength of an earth Xian, there's nothing he wouldn't do for revenge, let alone being naked, even if it was difficult. You're crazy, you know that third brother Jun can't move freely, and yet you're still trying to defend yourself. What are your intentions? Mu Shuetong angrily retorted, if we kill Jun Wui, then I'm afraid that the eldest young lady will commit suicide on the summit of the snowy mountain. What good will it do you to force these two men to their deaths? Xiao Han's eyes turned red as he angrily gasped for breath, but eventually didn't speak again. I'm sure that it wasn't done by the June family, because there's one more thing that I haven't said yet. The little princess seemed to have remembered something, and her face revealed a look of horror. What is it? Everyone saw her expression change, and asked in unison. After that man left, the entire red maple forest suddenly disappeared. The little princess opened her round eyes wide, and spoke in a horrified voice, everything turned into ashes, and the wind blew, and the entire forest was gone, leaving only an open space, a bare space, and nothing else. The three elders stood up with a teng sound, and even the ninth elder, who was in the middle of instilling energy into Xiao Fengwu, was no exception. Xiao Fengwu's mouth gurgled, and a trace of blood came out. Is this true? Are you sure you're not mistaken? The three elders opened their mouths at the same time. The three great elders could not be blamed for being so alarmed. After all, even with their vast experience, they had never heard of such a thing. Even in those ancient legends, they had never heard of such a thing. This was simply beyond the level of Xian Qi. The Silver Blizzard City's people had worked hard for dozens of generations, and they didn't hesitate to collect all kinds of rare treasures, useful and useless, as well as rare things to study and explore, all in order to get rid of the shackles of Xian Qi. How could they not be pleasantly surprised upon hearing such a thing? I'll immediately take the little princess to the Red Maple Forest. Xiao Han, immediately contact the Tianxiang imperial family, and invite imperial physician Fang Huisheng to come and treat Feng Wu. Bring out all the best medicines in the magnificent jewel hall, and make sure that Feng Wu's injuries are cured. Ninth brother, you take charge of the magnificent jewel hall, and send a messenger pigeon back to the Silver Blizzard City, and also send a letter to the Shuehun Manor. Mu Shuetong, you go with your sixth uncle to the June family, and see their reaction. Although the June family doesn't have such an expert, they are still a little suspicious. This matter is settled, and will act immediately. The third elder calmly issued orders. Chapter 218. Yes. Everyone replied in unison. It had to be said that the third elder's arrangements were very reasonable. The reason why he had sent Mu Shuetong instead of Xiao Han to the June family was because of this. Otherwise, Xiao Han would have been wrongly accused even if the June family hadn't done it. Moreover, the third elder had been entrusted with this task by the lord of the city and the eldest lady's entreaty. Definitely. Don't cause any trouble for the June family. The third elder hadn't participated in that incident. In fact, it had been done in secret, and only the Xiao family of the Silver Blizzard City had taken action. Everyone else had only found out about it afterwards. Although it had been suppressed in the end, the consequences had been very serious. Because of this, the Silver Blizzard City had been divided into two factions, and they had been debating about it until now, but there had been no conclusion. The third elder didn't have any ill feelings towards the June family, but he didn't have any good feelings towards them either. However, he was very sympathetic towards the eldest lady, and because of this, the stubborn old man didn't have any good feelings towards Xiao Han. As far as he was concerned, there was no need to force a relationship between a man and a woman. Even if a marriage was arranged, the woman didn't like you, so what's the point of pestering her? Even if they got married, they would only be resentful couples who would never get along. However, he was also angry at Jun Wooey. How could a third young master of a secular family like you be a match for the eldest princess of the Silver Blizzard City? Now, the two factions of the Silver Blizzard City were at loggerheads, and the eldest lady was either training hard or in a daze, and her personality was getting colder and colder. Xiao Han was also getting more and more violent and twisted, and the Xiao family and the lord of the city were also getting more and more divided. The Jun family was almost destroyed because of this. Why did they have to suffer? The third elder's speed was extremely fast. Even though he was carrying the little princess, Han Yen Meng, he arrived at the place where Jun Mo Xia had previously beaten Xiao Fengwu. The third elder was flabbergasted as he looked at the empty land in front of him. Little girl, are you sure this is the place? Did you get the wrong direction? The third elder asked in disbelief. It was no wonder that he was suspicious. The open space was so clean that there was not even a weed. It was flat and tidy. Not to mention a red maple tree, there was not even a branch or a leaf in the dozens of acres of land. Could there have been a forest here just moments ago? You must be joking. Even if they were to burn everything with fire, they should at least leave some ashes behind. This place looked like a place that had been specially leveled. It was too clean. It really is here. The little girl firmly nodded her head and said, Third Gong Gong, come over and take a look. Senior Marshal Brother Zhao's blood is still there. I won't be wrong. After looking around, the third elder still couldn't believe it. He had no choice but to ask a few local residents. As a result, when these people saw the bare ground, it was as if they had seen a ghost. Some of them even quickly took out incense burners and burned joss sticks to worship. This was a miracle. Even the forest had been moved away. After asking dozens of people, the third elder was finally shocked and convinced that there was indeed a red maple forest here just a moment ago. However, for some reason, it suddenly disappeared just a moment ago. The third elder suddenly thought of another matter and asked, Little girl, did you say that when you saw that person, he was naked? Third Gong Gong, why are you asking about this? The little girl's cheeks were red, and she was bashful. Just tell me, was he naked? Was there nothing on his body? And he didn't seem to have noticed it. Is that so? The third elder's voice was very solemn as he asked again. Yes. The little girl carefully thought about the situation at that time and answered with certainty. The third elder's face suddenly turned pale. So, this person must have been practicing some kind of unique mysterious technique. He must have inadvertently incinerated everything in his surroundings while he was practicing this technique. Of course, this included his own clothes. However, he hadn't noticed it in time. So, he had come out and met Xiao Fengwu and the little princess. However, Xiao Fengwu had spoken rudely to him. How can I tolerate someone as powerful as Xiao Fengwu speaking rudely to me? Xiao Fengwu's life has been spared because of this man's leniency. But, what kind of technique can incinerate the world with such destructive power? No wonder he didn't care about the Silver Blizzard City. Even if the Silver Blizzard City and the Shuehan Manor were to join hands, he wouldn't have taken them seriously if he had destroyed the maple forest. Even if the 8 great masters joined hands, would they have been able to create such a miracle? The 8 great masters could have easily destroyed the maple forest if they joined hands. But, they couldn't have done it without leaving a single trace. What kind of terrifying person is this? And, this terrifying person is on the opposite side of the Silver Blizzard City. The third elder wasn't even thinking about avenging Xiao Fengwu. Instead, he was feeling very nervous. Will this person vent his anger on the Silver Blizzard City because of Xiao Fengwu? If he really provoked such a great enemy after coming out this time, then, the Silver Blizzard City will be in trouble. Let's go. Let's go to the Jun family. The third elder made a prompt decision. This matter must be suppressed immediately. If this mysterious expert were to find out that they were investigating him, he might fly into a thunderous rage. Then, they would be completely finished. With that person's astonishing strength, none of them would be able to escape. Even if they fled back to their hometown, the Silver City, the result would still be the same. The third elder was able to maintain a calm expression on his face, but in his heart, he was cursing Xiao Fengwu over 100 times. This little bastard is arrogant enough to call himself the #1 junior of the Xiao clan. He can't do anything right, but he's only good at ruining things. Aside from advancing his cultivation at a relatively fast pace, he's never done anything serious. He disdains the troubles of the mortal world. He only provokes god-level troubles. It seems that I'll need to restrict the Silver Blizzard City's disciples to keep a low profile when they go out. Their previous arrogant and despotic behavior must never happen again. It turns out that such an expert exists in the mortal world. However, the Silver Blizzard City wasn't the most vexed. Because, there was another family that was even more vexed than them. In fact, they were even more vexed than they were. In fact, they were almost dying of pain. That family was the Li family. And, the Li family's atmosphere was extremely gloomy. For corpses were in the morgue. They hadn't been buried yet. The 6 disciples, including Li Yuran, were sitting in a circle. Their faces were filled with grief and indignation. They had been searching for that peculiar flying dagger for the past few days. They had secretly investigated more than half of the capital. But, they hadn't been able to find anything. 6th brother has regained his consciousness. But Li Yuran's face was sullen. Her face was full of pain. But, I'm afraid that he won't be able to stand up on his own in this life. Solitary eagle. That's a ruthless method. This hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. Lei Jianhong clenched his teeth. The blue veins on his temples were bulging. His eyes looked as if they were about to spit fire. This is all because of this little brother. Because of this little brother's wishful thinking, I wanted to compete for that top-notch Xian core, which caused the 6th brother to be crippled for life, and caused the 4 brothers to die young. Although Li Yuran's expression was calm, but his eyes were slowly flowing with tears, and he suddenly knelt on the ground with a thump. Eldest brother, this little brother, is guilty. I'm sorry to my brothers and sisters. I'm sorry to the master. I deserve to die. Lei Jianhong hastily stood up. What's going on? Quickly get up. This is unbecoming of you. He sighed and said, Little brother, it's true that you're the cause of this matter. But, you're not to be blamed for it. Since we've learned Xian Qi and stepped into Jianghu, we've been doomed to die at the hands of our enemies. We're doomed to die at the hands of our enemies. That's probably what it means to live in Jianghu. Everything is down to one's own luck. If we had seized the Xian Dan, then someone else would have died. And, they would have been the ones who would have grieved and grieved. Our failure would have been due to our inferiority. So, little brother, you don't need to blame yourself. Yes, eldest brother is right. Once you've stepped into Jianghu, you can't help yourself. How can you live on the edge of a knife? How can you not suffer losses? We're sad about the deaths of our brothers. But, we don't need to take it to heart. It won't help matters. The woman in red wiped the corners of her eyes. Her voice was choked with emotion. All we can do is avenge them at all costs. We'll help them collect this debt of blood. That's right. Revenge. Collect this debt of blood. Everyone shouted in unison. The enemy of the 6th brother is the divine eagle of the prairie, the solitary eagle. I'm afraid that the master will have to personally come forward to resolve this matter. I'm afraid that we won't be able to get our revenge in a short period of time by relying on our strength alone. Li Yuran stood up and looked into the distance, but I'll do everything in my power to accomplish this matter. As for the vengeance of our 4 brothers, the key lies in this strange flying dagger. I've looked through many libraries and countless records. I've even investigated the information of all the experts in Tianxiang City. But, I've been unable to find anything. However, I've discovered a very special incident in the past. And, only this incident can be related to this strange flying dagger. Li Yuren's complexion was very heavy. What incident? Lei Jianhong and the others asked in unison. I'm certain that this flying dagger has never appeared in public on the continent before. Li Yuran said in an affirmative tone. However, I've heard that a powerful Tian Xian expert had helped the Princess Raimu at the critical juncture of an assassination attempt. And, the Princess Raimu was able to escape the calamity with the help of this flying dagger. But, the flying dagger was regarded as a treasure by the Princess Raimu. She kept it close to her body. But, no one has ever seen what it looks like. It would be strange if anyone had seen it. The flying dagger was a secret weapon created by the hitman Jun himself. The vast majority of the people who had come into contact with this flying dagger had died. It seemed that only the Princess Raimu and Yi Guhan were exceptions. And, the 2 flying daggers in Princess Raimu's hands were her treasures. And, they never left her side. Chapter 219. I have this suspicion, so I plan to go to the palace in the next few days. I want to check the appearance of the flying dagger, and see if it's the same as this one. Li Yuren's eyes flashed as she continued, if it's the same, then we'll have a clue. Yes. If it's the same, then this scoundrel must have some relationship with the Princess Raimu. He helped the Princess Raimu at that time. So, he won't sit idly by if something happens to the Princess Raimu. That despicable guy will have no choice but to show himself as long as we control the princess. Lei Jianhong fiercely nodded as an ominous glint flashed in his eyes. However, this Princess Raimu is the girl that our youngest disciple is pursuing. She will be of great help to the Li family. Eldest disciple, you must act with propriety. If you rashly injure her, then you'll ruin our youngest disciple's marriage. The woman in red glanced at Li Yuran and said slowly. Yes, 3rd junior sister is right. We have to think about this at length. Lei Jianhong nodded again and again. Although this eldest disciple didn't have his own opinions, he was very good to his fellow disciples. 3rd sister's words are wrong. Li Yuran said with a strong sense of righteousness, Ling Meng's status and appearance may not be ordinary, but she is still an outsider in the end. Moreover, even if she is a member of the Li family, how can it be compared to the relationship between us brothers who have entrusted our lives to each other? I will do my best to cooperate with the eldest disciple for the sake of avenging the blood feud of our 4 brothers. I won't have any objections. So, what if I have to sacrifice Raimu for the sake of avenging the blood feud of our 4 brothers? Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I'm willing to do so. Youngest disciple. Lei Jianhong and the others were frightened as they looked at Li Yuran. Their eyes were full of excitement. With junior brother's words, we haven't traveled thousands of miles to come here in vain. Our 4 junior brothers, even if you die, you can rest in peace. Everyone nodded as they looked at Li Yuran with gentleness in their eyes. Master has said that he will personally come to deal with the matter of the 6th brother. But, I'm afraid that it will take him a few days to arrive in Tianxiang. So, please bear with the grief for the time being. Don't act rashly, and leave the matter of the flying dagger to me. Li Yuran sighed, it's only because of this little brother's matter that I've disturbed Master's peaceful cultivation. This is the thing that this little brother feels the most guilty about. It's a crime that deserves 10,000 deaths. Even if I were to die 10,000 times, how could it make up for the evil? Little junior brother, what are you talking about? Who doesn't know that Master dotes on you the most among all of us? Everyone spoke at once to comfort Li Yuran. The atmosphere was very harmonious for a while. Ever since Li Yuran had become Lei Wu Bei's disciple, all of Lei Wu Bei's disciples' livelihood had been provided by the Li family. Lei Wu Bei's disciples and cooks had been treated like masters by Li Yuran. Li Yuran had treated them like masters even though they were located deep in the mountains. But, their daily necessities were no different from those of the aristocratic families. It could be said that Lei Wu Bei's disciples had been spoiled by Li Yuran. Even the sons of the aristocratic families couldn't compare to their temperaments, but, we can't stay idle until the master arrives. Li Yuran's eyes flashed. Eldest brother, you know that our current sources of information are very limited. Even within the Tianxiang city, there are many people who are holding us back. Therefore, I urgently need the help of senior brothers. However, something like this has just happened, and I really can't bring myself to ask for your help. We brothers are one family. Don't tell me that your business is not our business. What's the matter? Just say it. There's no need to be so wishy-washy. Just say it. Lei Jianhong waved his hand in a very dissatisfied manner. He was very touched at the moment. No matter what condition Li Yuran put forward, he would readily agree. Thank you, eldest brother. Li Yuran's face revealed an awkward expression as he spoke in a distressed manner. This little brother's problem lies in the underground forces of the Tianxiang city. I had already taken control of the northern city gang. But, a freak combination of factors led to the uprooting of the Tang family. So, I'm still in a state of complete emptiness. It's very inconvenient to do anything. Even if I wanted to get timely information, I can't. A few underground gangs. Haha, that's not a problem. Lei Jianhong smiled fiercely. We've been suppressed for the past few days. We can't afford to provoke solitary eagle. But, we can vent our anger on these small shrimps. Rest assured, junior brother. We'll help you unify the Tianxiang city's underworld before master arrives. We'll hand it over to you. Thank you for your help, eldest brother. With the help of several senior brothers and sisters, this little brother can finally put down a big stone in my heart. And, the strength of my Li family will certainly rise to a higher level with the help of the senior brothers and sisters. Li Yuran expressed her gratitude. Then, she gnashed her teeth and said with grief and indignation, I'll immediately go to the imperial palace to investigate the matter of the flying dagger. After all, the vengeance of my 4 senior brothers cannot be delayed. Even if one day passes, this little brother's heart will still feel as if it's being fried in oil. If I can't avenge my 4 senior brothers' vengeance as soon as possible, then what's the point of this little brother's life? There's no need to be so polite. The people of the imperial palace are unpredictable. Junior brother, you must be careful. I'll leave the matter of investigating the enemies of the flying dagger to you, junior brother. We'll respectfully wait here for the good news. Lei Jianhong and the others got up, and earnestly exhorted him. Their concern was overflowing with words and expressions. Yes, thank you for your concern, senior brothers and sisters. This little brother knows what to do. Oh, by the way, eldest brother, we can't stand in the front of the stage. We can only manipulate from behind the scenes. Li Yuran smiled and reminded him. Therefore, we must have a good grasp of this. Of course, we are very clear about the pros and cons of this matter. Junior brother, you're taking this matter so seriously. But, you're treating us as inexperienced. Lei Jianhong laughed heartily. It had to be said that this was an extremely astonishing coincidence. Li Yuran and Jun Moxie were potential rivals. They didn't even know of each other's existence, but they had made the same choice at the same time. They had chosen the same target. The capital's underworld. Moreover, the methods of the two were strangely similar. Jun Moxie had taken advantage of Hai Chen Feng's perilous situation by threatening him with kindness, enticing him with benefits, and then taking advantage of his perilous situation. Jun Moxie had also calculated every possible way to deal with the solitary eagle. First, he had used a trumped-up identity to threaten him, and then he had used it to his liking. Thus, the goal was achieved. On the other hand, Li Yuran also played tricks on his fellow apprentices. He moved them with their emotions and used benefits to achieve his goal. Although both of their methods had their own merits, they were equally despicable and shameless. June Moxie would do anything to achieve his goals. In order to achieve her goal, Li Yuran doesn't care about her family. Another shocking coincidence was that both of them had sent out experts from Tianxian at the same time. The only difference was that June Moxie had dispatched Hai Chen-feng, who was of a higher rank, while Li Yuran had won in terms of quantity. In this regard, they were equally matched. Now, both of them felt as if they had slaughtered a chicken with a butcher's knife. Both of them were full of confidence, and felt as if they could capture the target with their bare hands. Everything that had happened before had the shadows of these two people in it. It could be said that without Li Yuran and June Moxie's unintentional cooperation, none of the events that had transpired in the capital would have happened. If either of these two people had been missing, the storm would not have been so big. However, the two of them had set off the biggest storm in Tianxiang City, and neither of them knew about it. Even though the two of them had done things in the same way, they wanted to manipulate things from behind the scenes, and were unwilling to show themselves in front of people. Although June Moxie knew about Li Yuran, and knew that Li Yuran was the #1 person in the younger generation of the Li family, he had never thought that Li Yuran could be his opponent. In his heart, Li Yuran was not worthy. The evil monarch was arrogant towards the whole world. He didn't even put the entire world in his eyes. What was a mere Li Yuran? Li Yuran also knew about June Moxie. But in Li Yuran's heart, June Moxie's weight was also far inferior. How could such a debauchee be a match for the Li family's young master? He was directly ignored. They didn't know each other, and yet they despised each other. But, they did the same thing, and used the same methods. The first real confrontation between these two people was about to begin under such circumstances. And, this collision would also take place in the shadows. Both of them were manipulating things, but neither of them showed themselves. Even the Xian Qi of these two people was at the peak of the Gold Xian realm. But, they had mobilized an expert of the same level as Tian Xian to fight for them. They were also disciples of the great masters. Behind Hai Chen-feng stood the Blue Master, Meng Hongchen. And behind Lei Jianheng stood the cold-blooded master, Lei Wu-bei. In this aspect, they were actually equally matched. Who would win? Who would lose? But, it didn't matter who won or lost. The Blue Master, Meng Hongchen, and the cold-blooded master, Lei Wu-bei, were two of the 8 great masters. But, this enmity had already been formed. Two young masters of aristocratic families were fighting over a small underground gang, yet it was able to affect such a world-shaking figure, causing a huge storm in the entire supreme world. It had to be said that fate was unpredictable, and the will of the heavens toying with people. It was too miraculous. The Jun family, Hai Chen-feng, who had recovered from his injuries, had already slipped away. He was ready to display his skills and unify the Tianxiang underworld. The Jun family had Solitary Eagle. So, Hai Chen-feng wouldn't take the initiative to look for trouble. Of course, it would be a different story if June Moxie were to summon him. Solitary Eagle was studying June Moxie's moves. He was so engrossed in them that he had forgotten to eat and sleep. June Dashao had already been infuriated several times. But, Solitary Eagle didn't care about anything once he was immersed in the study of martial arts. In fact, he was almost obsessed with it. In fact, he didn't care about anything around him at all. The little girl, Little Ku, quietly served tea. Then, she tiptoed away. Tang Dashao was next door. He was trying his best to control his breathing. He didn't even dare to cough or fart. That was because the slightest movement could provoke a fatal disaster. In fact, he was almost obsessed with it. In fact, he didn't care about anything around him. Everyone seemed very quiet and diligent for a moment. Chapter 220. At this moment, Da Xiao was annoyed to the point of being a little neurotic. After dealing with Solitary Eagle's questions once again, June Moxie simply got up, and practiced the 9 ghostly eagle techniques in one go. Then, he left Solitary Eagle behind, and walked out to get some fresh air. I'm not cut out to be a teacher, June Da Xiao said to himself. In the garden of the small courtyard, Guan Qinghan, dressed in snow-white clothes, stood there coldly. Her expression was somewhat complicated. Sister-in-law, when did you come over? Why didn't you let Ku'er inform us? June Moxie's spirits rose, and he stepped forward to strike up a conversation. Compared to Solitary Eagle's coffin-like face, Guan Qinghan's expression was as cold as a snow-capped mountain. But for June Moxie, seeing Guan Qinghan after being accustomed to Solitary Eagle was undoubtedly like going from hell to a garden of paradise. It was extremely pleasing to the eye. I saw that you were busy earlier, so I didn't disturb you. Guan Qinghan's usual cold expression was somewhat complicated today. She seemed to have a lot on her mind. Her cold but melancholy eyes were looking at the flowers and plants in June Moxie's courtyard. She said faintly, the flowers and plants planted in the June residence are much more luxuriant than any other place in the capital. It's already late autumn, but the flowers and plants that should have turned into nothingness have not yet withered. It's a great wonder. And in the June residence, the flowers and plants in the 3 courtyards of mine and the 3rd uncle's are the most luxuriant. Among these 3 courtyards, the flowers and plants in yours are better than those in mine and the 3rd uncle's. I don't know how 3rd uncle's flowers and plants are taken care of, but the plants and trees in my courtyard are all meticulously taken care of by me. But they are still not as good as the flowers and plants in your courtyard that no one has taken care of. Ha, is there a secret behind this? June Moxie's heart was shaken. Guan Qinghan was able to see through a flaw that she had long been aware of but was unable to conceal. It was said that women were meticulous, and it was indeed true. He had been practicing at all times, whether it was gathering the heaven-earth spiritual qi, or borrowing the pure spiritual qi from the Hongjun pagoda. Humans might not be able to sense this, but the plants and flowers were very sensitive to it. Moreover, they were also benefiting from it, and were thriving. It was late autumn at this time, but the area around young Master June's courtyard was like a paradise on earth. Hundreds of flowers bloomed, but didn't wither. This naturally went against common sense. June Da Xiao had noticed this a long time ago, but he couldn't control it. Everyone was used to it and did not think much of it. After all, as long as some flowers and plants were taken care of properly, they could still grow even in autumn. However, if the entire courtyard was still lush and full of life in the middle of winter, it would be too eye-catching. At that time, even a fool would be able to tell that something was wrong. What's so strange about it? Isn't it because our June family's feng shui is good? Ha ha. That's why I say that sister-in-law is enjoying life in our house. Ha ha, June Moxie laughed. He was thinking about how to change the situation. If it didn't work, then he could just plant the plum blossoms. The plum blossoms were cold and proud, so it shouldn't be a problem for the plum blossoms to bloom in winter. Ha ha, enjoying life. Guan Qinghan's beautiful eyes were fixated on the green leaves in front of her. She said faintly, not bad. You're really enjoying life. June Da Xiao immediately realized that he had said the wrong thing. He wanted to slap himself. This mouth of his doesn't know how to speak properly. Guan Qinghan's status in the June family was quite high. Even if she was respected, she was still a widow. How could she enjoy life in this way? You've worked hard these past few days. Guan Qinghan sorted out her state of mind. A rare smile appeared on her calm and cold face. Third brother, I have a few questions to ask you. Is it convenient? Eldest sister-in-law, don't say such things. If you have something to ask, I will tell you everything I know. June Mo Xia was very straightforward. I don't know how you did it, but I heard 3rd uncle say that you've solved the problem with the Shui Hun manor. And, third uncle actually believed you. I find it hard to believe that you've solved it. So, you're telling me in front of my face that you've really solved it? Guan Qinghan's head was still lowered, and she was looking at the flowers and plants in front of her. Her side was facing June Mo. The gentle breeze was blowing, and her soft hair was fluttering in the wind, revealing the delicate skin of her face and half of her neck. Well, at least it's been solved for the time being. June Moxie had inadvertently discovered that delicate neck. He couldn't help but take a few glances at it. It would be a waste not to look at it. After all, it was a rare opportunity to look at it. Since you're so sure, I have no choice but to believe you. I don't know what you've been doing these past few days. But, you've successfully invited a great master to your home. This should be your preparation to deal with the Shuehan Manor and the Silver Blizzard City, right? Guan Qinghan gently smiled. I heard third uncle talk about this matter. He admires you very much. As far as I can remember, third uncle hasn't admired anyone besides his grandfather and father-in-law. But, you're the third person he admires. June Moxie cursed in his heart. This third uncle has such a big mouth. He's leaking everything. What's the use of admiring me? He might as well give me some substantial benefits, this, that. I guess so. Ha, it was actually a coincidence. June Moxie touched his nose. His eyes were still looking at that delicate neck. Even he couldn't hear what he was saying. Guan Qinghan's head was still hanging down. She hadn't noticed a certain pig brother's unscrupulous eyes. I also heard third uncle say that you let me win a few days ago in our martial arts competition. Your real ability is far above mine. But, you tried your best to restrain yourself so that you wouldn't hurt me. Guan Qinghan's pretty face suddenly turned red. It wasn't clear what she was thinking. A faint blush appeared on her tender white skin, which was exceptionally alluring. For June Mo, it was simply a feast for the eyes. June Moxie's eyes widened. He swallowed his saliva and said with difficulty, third uncle is bragging. Don't believe him. I don't have that much ability, I don't want to believe you either. But, you have the ability to solve all the crises in the June family. It's reasonable for you to have strength far above mine. Guan Qinghan sighed and said, Mo, you've grown up. You're no longer that. June Moxie broke out in a cold sweat. His sister-in-law, Guan Qinghan, was only 22 years old. But, at this moment, she was acting like an adult. She said to someone who was 30 years old in his previous life, you've grown up. June Moxie suddenly felt as if his brain had short-circuited. Sister-in-law, you're only in your 20s. How can you speak like an old man? It's really unbearable. June Dashao's face was downcast. If it was in the past, June Dashao wouldn't have said this even if he was beaten to death. Because, saying this would undoubtedly lead to a one-sided beating that he wouldn't be able to fight back against. Third uncle said that you've been hiding your strength and biding your time. Everyone has misunderstood you. Guan Qinghan chuckled. The coldness on her face melted. It was as if a glacier had suddenly melted. Then, 100 flowers bloomed. She tilted her head slightly. In a charming manner, she said, but, I really don't understand. Your previous mischief and evil deeds were also hiding your strength and biding your time. Yes, June Moxie's brain was working rapidly. His eyes were also rolling around. Sister-in-law, you also know that our June family situation. I had no choice. There was no other way. The June family situation is one thing. I naturally understand that. But, does it really have anything to do with your previous mischief in front of me? Guan Qinghan's pretty face turned cold. She turned her head to face June Moxie for the first time. Her phoenix eyes glared at him. That is also a disguise, a play. June Moxie had already cursed the original Mo in his heart. This bastard. He's acting like a hooligan. But, he wants me to take the blame. Disguise? A play? Humph. Guan Qinghan looked at him coldly. If there is such a disguise, in the future, I will leave the Jun family and never come back. Guan Qinghan wanted to say, I will hit you. But, she instantly realized that she was no match for him. So, she hurriedly changed her words. But, she couldn't finish her words in one go. No matter what her original intention was, the meaning she wanted to express was gone. Yes, yes. I won't dare to do it again. I really won't dare to do it again. Jun Moxie grinned. Even though he said that he wouldn't dare to do it again, anyone could see that this guy didn't take it to heart. Humph, a woman's reputation, is it something that you can joke about? Guan Qinghan said angrily. Then, what is it used for? Jun Moxie blurted out something inexplicable. As soon as the words left his mouth, Jun Dashao knew that it was going to be bad. This sentence was a big taboo. Not to mention now, even if it was in his previous life, it would be extremely shameful. You. Guan Qinghan trembled with anger. Her eyes turned red. She took a deep breath and her face turned cold. So, you haven't changed at all. She turned around and walked away. Look at my mouth. Jun Dashao was stunned for a moment. He only felt extremely depressed. Suddenly, he roared. Damn it, Fatty Tang, are you going to retire here? How long do you want to finish your plan? Give me an explanation. I am not happy today. Don't force me to help you lose weight. He actually vented his anger on Tang Yuan. It's done, it's done. He waved a stack of papers in his hand. Take a look, master, boss. I've organized these according to what you've told me. Take a look and see if it's okay. It should be good. Jun Moxie grabbed it and stared at it. He didn't even flip through 2 pages. He stuffed it back. Yes, yes. Not bad indeed. You haven't read it carefully. Tang Dashao felt wronged. He felt that his hard work was ignored. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes. It wasn't that he didn't want to read it carefully. It was just that he couldn't understand it at all. Jun Dashao didn't expect that Tang Yuan would be able to organize such a thick stack of plans with his simple recollection of his previous life. Fatty is really too talented. Why didn't I notice it before? It's nearing the end of the month. It's almost time for the gods to explode. We have been going through this month at a constant pace. Occasionally, we explode, but it's always at the beginning of the month. Damn, I still lack experience. However, I have never gone back on my promises. Yesterday, I saw a reader asking me in the book review section, where's the explode you promised? Haha, it's coming now. Actually, I don't want to say anything. Compared to some hard-working gods, our updates are not that much. However, I have never promised anything about our explode. I am just doing my part. When there are too many manuscripts, they will explode at any time. Manuscripts are for everyone to read. What's the use of keeping them in my hands? This month, according to the minimum of 2 chapters, we have already exploded 7 or 8 times. Everyone is already used to it. Brothers and sisters can see that I don't make promises easily. I won't negotiate with my brothers about things like updating for monthly votes. I am just doing my part. I am a writer. When my condition is good, I can write a few thousand words and send it out. When my condition is bad, I will guarantee 2 chapters. When it's between 2 chapters, unless it's urgent, I won't ask for monthly votes. I am also too embarrassed to ask for it. Chapter 221. I trust you very much. Jun Moxie patted Tang Yuan's shoulder affectionately. No matter what you do, I'll believe and support you. So, I don't need to look at it, and I won't give any other opinions, understand? Since he couldn't figure it out, he might as well buy people's hearts. Third young master, sob sob. Tang Yuan was moved to tears. I've always heard people say that a gentleman will die for his bosom friend, but today I finally understand what it means. It feels so good to be trusted, sob. I'm so touched, I swear, I'll work my heart out, I'll spare no effort, I'll be loyal, I'll give my all for your cause, I'll go through mountains of blades and seas of fire, I'll die 100 times without regret, I'll die 10,000 times, I won't let you down even if I die 10,000 times. Through this period of interaction, young Master Jun had already become immune to Fatty's valiant flattery. He stood there with a smile on his face, nodding his head, and gracefully listening to this extremely disgusting flattery. In fact, he had already become somewhat accustomed to it, and only treated it as an enjoyment. A pile of fat continuously flattering with tears and snot flowing, while the person being flattered was calmly smiling, listening attentively, and even had an intoxicated look on his face. This scene fell into the eyes of the solitary eagle, and he couldn't stand it. The rolling flattery in his ears was like a tide, and his eyes were so ugly that it made him want to vomit. Ugh. Solitary eagle rushed out with a whoosh, and said with a pale face, I think it's better for me to stay in Wui's courtyard. He directly left without even turning his head back. He really couldn't stay in this place any longer. It was too disgusting. Even with the willpower of the 8 great supreme beings, they couldn't hold on any longer. Aha! Jun Dashao's eyes widened. He patted Fatty Tang's shoulder so hard that he almost fell to the ground. Then, he arrogantly shrugged his shoulders and laughed, Fatty, you're too awesome. You're practically the nemesis of Supreme Eagle, haha. Tang Yuan blankly wiped off the cold sweat that he had gotten from being scared by the solitary eagle just now. He was scared out of his wits as he asked, What happened this time? It's nothing, you did the right thing. Very true. Not bad at all. Jun Moxie praised him without restraint. He didn't expect that his biggest headache would be driven away by Fatty Tang's flattery. Isn't this what it means to have the heart to plant flowers but not to blossom, but to unintentionally plant willows and grow into shade? We're going to hold an exclusive auction for the fine wine you've been drinking these past few days. Fatty, your first task after becoming independent is to use these fine wines to create as much wealth as possible. Do you understand what I mean? Jun Moxie smiled widely and patted Fatty's shoulder. He felt very happy. It's not a big problem. Normally, it's very difficult for wines to appear in an auction. However, our wine isn't restricted by that. I feel that setting the base price at 500 taels per jar shouldn't be a problem. Tang Yuan said confidently. Compared to the current fine wines, this price was several times higher. Base price of 500 taels per jar. Are you kidding me? Jun Moxie shook his head and rejected mercilessly. Is it too high? I think 300 taels should be fine. Any lower and it would be a waste for the wine. Although I don't know much about wine, the wine you've made is definitely the best of the best. It's much better than anything I've ever tasted before. The final auction price will be very impressive. I believe it will not be lower than 3,000 taels of silver. Tang Yuan smacked his lips and said with uncertainty. No. The final auction price is 3,000 taels of silver. Fatty, it seems like you really don't know much about wine. My target is 10,000 taels. 1 jar. Not a single copper coin less. Jun Moxie stretched out a finger and said while gritting his teeth. F***K me. Tang Yuan suddenly jumped up and stood 3 feet above the ground. With a boom, he landed on the ground. The fat around his body suddenly dropped down and directly hit the ground. His belly even bounced back and forth a few times. Ever since Tang Yuan's body became round, he could not remember jumping up. He never expected that he would suddenly be 3 feet above the ground. For Tang Yuan, this was simply a peerless qinggong. Are you crazy? Tang Yuan hissed and took a deep breath. He had no choice. When he jumped up earlier, the muscles around his body slapped the ground fiercely, causing pain all over his body. He gritted his teeth and said with a ferocious expression, 10,000 taels per jar. Do you think this is the wine that the gods drink? Can one drink make you immortal? Brother, are you kidding me? This is impossible. It will definitely not be auctioned. I am not joking with you. This is definitely not a joke. Jun Moxie waved his hand and said with a smile, it is 10,000 taels per jar. Yes, I said 10,000 taels is the starting price. Tang Yuan was speechless. He rolled his eyes and almost fainted. Don't worry, fatty, I have already formulated a strategy. Jun Moxie smiled mysteriously. Turning his head, he said, I have already found the place. It will be opposite the magnificent jewel hall. Fatty, you will be the shopkeeper in the future. You must be prepared. 3 days later, we will have an auspicious opening. So fast. Fatty was shocked. It doesn't matter if I am narcissistic or not. The key is, what if your wife likes me? This is not an alarmist talk. One side is a jade tree, the other side is a dung. As long as she is still human, she will know what to choose. Jun Dashao squinted his eyes and put on a profound pose. That is also true. Tang Yuan touched his chin as he seriously considered the possibility of this matter. Why don't you put on some makeup before you go? Put some pockmarks on your face, and draw a few scars. Wouldn't that not be a jade tree? Jun Mo Xia completely collapsed and retreated in defeat. I'll go look for third uncle and ask him to send out the invitations and prepare for the grand opening. Don't look for me if there's nothing important, and don't look for me if there's something important. Don't forget to accompany me tomorrow. This is a matter of life and death. Tang Yuan shouted behind him. Hitman Jun walked away even faster. Jun Dashao's arrival came at the right time. Third Master Jun had just settled down the solitary eagle. Jun Wui's attitude towards the Great Master's residence was much better than Jun Moxie's. Jun Wui was also at the stage of advancement, and there were many problems that he didn't understand. So, the solitary eagle's residence was a good thing for him. Third Master Jun directly gave up his study room. Solitary Eagle hadn't come out since he entered the study room. He was holding a pen, and was drawing the moves that Jun Moxie had just demonstrated. From time to time, he would get up and practice a few moves. Then, he would continue to sit down, frown, ponder, and draw. The master, Jun Wui, had been driven out. This was clearly a case of a dove occupying a magpie's nest. However, Jun Wui didn't mind at all. On the contrary, he was very satisfied. He leisurely sat in his wheelchair and enjoyed the beautiful autumn scenery. At this time, Jun Dashao came over. Invitations? Auspicious opening? The third Master Jun looked at the thick stack of invitations, and couldn't help but take a deep breath. Mo Xia, you really despise the poor and love the rich, ah. You've included all the nobles and the rich on this list. You've included almost everyone in the Tianxiang city who has a little bit of wealth. Third uncle, our auction house is a place that only the nobles can afford. To put it bluntly, even a millionaire wouldn't dare to enter. Think about it, a jar of wine costs 10,000 silvers. How can an ordinary person afford to drink it? Jun Moxie rolled his eyes. I've even thought of a name. It's called Noble Area. This time, I swear I won't rest until I peel off a layer of skin from each and every one of these rich and powerful people. Money is a good thing. Although money isn't omnipotent, but it should be able to at least 9,000 silvers. Jun Wui felt a chill down his spine. His nephew's way of thinking was a little too crazy. Chapter 222. Today is the third chapter. I don't need to say anything, brothers and sisters, I'm going to desperately write." Jun Wooey opened his mouth, and couldn't help but take a few steps back. "This kid is crazy." At this time, someone came to report, "Third Master, Mu Shuetong has come to meet with an old man who claims to be the sixth elder of the Silver Blizzard City. Would you like to invite him in?" Jun Wuyi had informed all the servants of the Jun family that Mu Shuetong was like a brother to them, and that no one in the Jun family could neglect him unless he was accompanied by someone else. Otherwise, he could go anywhere in the Jun family. Jun Wooey and his nephew welcomed Mu Shuetong's arrival, but when they heard the words Silver Blizzard City's sixth elder, both Jun Moxie and Jun Wooey raised their heads at the same time, and their expressions became somewhat thought-provoking. Jun Wooey's facial muscles twitched, and Jun Moxie's face became somewhat doubtful. "Did he come to our doors so quickly? Isn't this efficiency a bit too high?" "Third uncle, this sixth elder has Shinxian's cultivation, and I'm afraid that you won't be able to hide from his eyes even if you're completely healed." Jun Moxie immediately thought of this point, "But you can't avoid it at the moment. Do you want me to do something? I should be able to hide it." "No need. They'll find out sooner or later anyway." Jun Wooey shook his head. "The impact of my recovery may not be entirely negative. Yao is still waiting for my news, and I can imagine how happy she would be if Mu Shuetong brought back the news that I've fully recovered. After all, she has suffered all these years." Jun Wooey's face revealed a gentle look, and his eyes were distant and affectionate, as if that ice-cold woman was silently gazing at him from afar. Jun Moxie sighed, but didn't say anything. Although Jun Moxie had a strong purpose in doing things, he also understood Jun Wooey's taste of bitter love. Therefore, although he disapproved of it, he did not stop it. "Ask them to come here." Jun Wooey tried to control his voice so that it wouldn't go out of tune. Jun Wooey pushed his wheelchair and went to the entrance of the small courtyard to welcome them. "Ha, Wooey, we meet again. You look much better than last time." Mu Shuetong smiled warmly, but his eyes revealed a strange look. It seemed as if he was reminding someone of something, but only Jun Wooey could see it. Jun Wooey's heart skipped a beat. He cupped his hands in greeting and said, "So it's sixth elder who has come personally. Please, come in." The sixth elder's white beard fluttered in the wind. He looked at Jun Wooey from head to toe and said, "You're Jun Wooey?" His voice was dignified. "I am." Jun Wooey nodded in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. A faint smile appeared on his face. Not bad. You haven't even reached 40 years of age, but you've already reached the mid-level of Tianxian. With your age and in such a mundane world, being able to attain such accomplishments can be said to be extremely rare and commendable." A cold light flashed in the sixth elder's eyes as he said, "I've heard that you've been injured. But, you've progressed so quickly. Has your injury healed?" Jun Wooey's injury has been healed. "I can't hide it from this great master, Shinxian." Jun Moxie's guess was right. Mu Shuetong's body shook. He revealed a look of pleasant surprise. He looked at Jun Wooey with an expectant look, and waited for his reply. "Ha, thanks to Senior's good fortune, I was lucky enough to get rid of the poison. But, my legs still need to be nurtured." Jun Wooey smiled faintly. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. "This strange thing has been tormenting me for 10 years. The taste of these 10 years is truly unforgettable. Ha, the heavens help the worthy, and the heavens bless those who love them." The sixth elder smiled meaningfully. "This is indeed worthy of celebration. Please." Jun Wooey stepped aside and shouted, "Serve the tea." Jun Moxie pushed the wheelchair behind him without saying a word. "This is your eldest brother's only son, right?" The sixth elder looked at Jun Moxie with an inexplicable look in his eyes. "Yes." Jun Wooey's eyes flashed with deep pain. "This is my eldest brother's only son who has survived to this day. He's the last direct descendant of the Jun family." The sixth elder had said, "only son," but the meaning behind it was unknown. However, Jun Wui had said, only son who has survived to this day. Although these words were spoken in a flat tone, but they contained a deep sense of resentment. Ha, the only descendant of the Jun family, he's really quite pampered. The sixth elder smiled kindly, you can look at this old man in a natural manner. The descendants of the Jun family are really different. This old man must be the sixth elder of the Silver Blizzard City. May I take the liberty to ask your surname? Jun Moxie had already heard this old man's words. So, when he heard himself being mentioned, he immediately asked. The sixth elder's eyes flashed, and he calmly replied, this old man's surname is Xiao. Xiao Han is this old man's nephew. So that's how it is, Jun Moxie chuckled, and his eyes flashed with a trace of killing intent. No one noticed it, and he quickly concealed it. I really envy Elder Xiao for reaching the level of Xinxian. Such a cultivation is enough to place him at the top of the world. Ha, it's truly a blessing for the Jun family to have such a strong presence in our Jun family. The sixth elder kindly smiled, sure enough, you are young heroes. Even your words are so appropriate. The four of them were full of smiles as they walked inside. Mu Shuatong suddenly remembered that ever since the sixth elder had joined the Silver Blizzard City's third, sixth, and ninth elders, almost everyone had addressed him as Elder Xiao. In fact, almost everyone had forgotten that the sixth elder was also a member of the Xiao family. Although the expressions and words of the two sides seemed amiable, it was obvious that something was wrong. Although both sides were smiling from ear to ear, but the atmosphere was becoming more and more oppressive. Mu Shuatong's heart suddenly raised a thought, and he couldn't help but be startled. Could it be that the sixth elder was also involved in that incident? Then wouldn't the sixth elder and I be bringing disaster to the Jun family? In Jun Wui's small courtyard, the study was connected to the living room, but since the solitary eagle was currently residing in the study, Jun Wui naturally couldn't allow these people to disturb him. So, he set up a table under a flowering tree in the courtyard. Good tea. The sixth elder lifted his teacup and took a sip. He leaned back slightly and closed his eyes. After savoring the taste for a moment, he praised. His eyes were still closed as he slowly asked, Third Master Jun, I don't know if you've seen the Xiao family's young master. The Xiao family's young master? Jun Wui frowned, and replied in a puzzled manner, I've never seen him. It's an unintentional illness, and it's only recently that I've gotten better, but I'm still unable to move freely. In fact, I've almost forgotten how to walk these past few years, and rarely come out of the Jun family's residence. What is the Xiao family's young master's name? How old is he, and what does he look like? Oh. Does Third Master Jun mean that you haven't seen him? The sixth elder was still leaning back with his eyes closed. He lightly replied, my grandnephew accompanied the little princess on a tour of the Tianxiang city today, but was beaten up by a bold bandit for no reason, and was seriously injured. This old man can't think of any other family in the Tianxiang city besides the Jun family who would dare to do such a thing. Sixth elder, do you mean to say that the Xiao family's young master was injured because of the Jun family? I don't know if you have any evidence, but the sixth elder is an expert of the present age, so you must have some conclusive evidence. Jun Moxie suddenly interrupted, and asked. He was somewhat angry in his heart, since this old man was obviously trying to frame them. While the elders are speaking, the younger generation is rashly interjecting. Such rules are really ridiculous. Is this how the third generation of the Jun family should be taught? The third elder's eyes were still closed, but he suddenly shouted, Go! Xinxian's Xian Qi was concentrated, and this shout was like a muffled thunder, and was aimed at Jun Dashao himself, and the sound waves penetrated directly into his eardrums. The condensation of Xinxian's Xian Qi had almost reached the point where it couldn't stop anything, and even Mu Shuatong and Jun Wui, who were close to Tianxian, were only slightly shaken by his strength, but Jun Moxie, who was bearing the brunt of the attack, felt as if the world had turned upside down. He only felt a sharp steel needle drilling straight into his ear, and continued to move forward without a moment's pause, and in an instant, even his soul began to tremble. If this sound were to penetrate into his ear, then perhaps Jun Moxie would bleed from his orifices on the spot, and although it may not be fatal, but the repercussions would be unavoidable. At the very least, he would suffer from severe tinnitus, and could easily lose his hearing. Jun Moxie cursed in his heart, "This old man is too vicious and merciless. This young master's words couldn't be more serious, and yet he actually wants to cause such serious injuries. What kind of logic is this?" Jun Dashao had only been in this world for a short period of time, and everything had gone according to his wishes, but how could he have known that in the eyes of these Shenxian's experts, an ordinary low-level Xian Qi practitioner was nothing more than an ant? They could do whatever they wanted, and they weren't bound by any restrictions, not to mention that the sixth elder was surprised to see that Jun Wui had actually recovered from his 10 years of disability, and so he decided to target the Jun family for the sake of his nephew. As for the rules and principles, if one didn't have enough strength, then they wouldn't be able to enjoy such treatment. Since Jun Moxie was the only bloodline of the Jun family, then he would make the Jun family suffer. Jun Dashao was suddenly ambushed, and quickly activated the art of unlocking Heaven's fortune, and soundlessly launched a counterattack, and in an instant, he had already laid down 7 layers of defense. It must be said that the art of unlocking Heaven's fortune was indeed unique, and Jun Dashao's strength was only equivalent to that of a gold Xian, but he was still able to resist the attack of a Shin Xian expert. Although there was a great disparity in strength between the two, and the sound wave was even more incisive, but it still lacked momentum, and under the young Master Jun's layers of defense, the sound wave would gradually dissipate, and by the time it reached the end, it was already an arrow at the end of its flight, and was finally unable to pass through, and completely dispersed. Chapter 223. Today is the 4th time. Asking for monthly votes. The other party was a strong member of the Shin Xian family, and his strength was far superior to that of the Jun family. If Jun Dashao rashly exposed his true strength, then he feared that the other party wouldn't let him go, and might even find an excuse to get rid of him. Therefore, he didn't use his Xian Qi to heal his internal injuries, and deliberately made his nose bleed. Even so, the 6th elder was still, He finally opened his eyes, and sized up Jun Moxie for a moment, then nodded and said, "Not bad." The 6th elder was a member of the Shin Xian family, so he didn't attack again. Although he was surprised by Jun Sunshao's strength, but Jun Sunshao was still a member of the younger generation, and was only at the gold Xian level. If he were to attack again and again, then it would be too ungentlemanly. Hitman Jun snorted, wiped the blood from his face, and sneered, "Great Master Shin Xian, you're really sharp." If he had said these words when he was seriously injured, it would have been a heartfelt compliment. But now, he was able to withstand the attack of a supreme divine Xian expert with his insignificant cultivation. Not only that, he was able to withstand the attack of a supreme divine Xian expert without suffering any injuries. Although the 6th elder had used less than 10% of his Xian Qi to deal with him, but it was still the great Shin Xian level Xian Qi, so how could a puny gold Xian be able to withstand it? If not for Jun Dashao's profound strength, then even an Earth Xian expert wouldn't necessarily be able to withstand it. 6th elder, please be merciful. Mu Shuetong shouted urgently, as he tried to think of a way to get the 6th elder to leave the Jun residence. The 6th elder's lightning-fast attack was beyond Mu Shuetong's expectations, and he was just about to ask for mercy. 6th elder, may I ask what you mean by this? Jun Wui's sword-like eyebrows were raised as he asked. Although the person in front of him was the supreme martial artist Shin Xian, Jun Wui would never tolerate him hurting his only nephew in front of him. Making a move against a member of the younger generation, is this the demeanor of the Silver Blizzard City's Shao family and the awe-inspiring might of Great Master Shin Xian? I don't mean anything in particular. But, your Jun family will have to pay the appropriate price if the people of my Silver Blizzard City have gotten into trouble in your territory. The 6th elder said casually, but the meaning behind his words was exceptionally overbearing and unreasonable. The sixth elder looked at June Moxie and said, "This brat actually dared to be so rude to this old man. This old man naturally has to punish him." It was also telling him that being unreasonable to people like Shen Xian could bring about a fatal disaster at any time. This old man is doing this with good intentions. It was completely conceivable that the sixth elder would die on the spot even if he had the cultivation of Shen Xian. In fact, he might even die without a complete corpse. Along with the arrival of this silhouette was an incomparably tyrannical aura that rushed between heaven and earth. A proud and aloof aura suddenly arrived like the king of the dark night. The third elder and the sixth elder were shocked at the same time. They cried out in alarm, "Solitary eagle! Why is this god of death here? Oh my god, what did I say just now? Leave his corpse intact." However, it was too late to think about this at this moment. The sixth elder knew that it was more important to save his life. Without the demeanor of an expert, he fiercely flipped over from his seat. Then, he did a series of somersaults, changing his position 5 to 6 times in a flash. Shen Xian's Xian Qi churned as he continuously set up a defensive line. Layer by layer, he faced the terrifying aura of the approaching person. The solitary eagle did not care about the heavy defensive line below him. His body pressed down from the sky, and directly tore through the air. His palms and fingers maintained their original posture, and with irresistible force, he pierced through the sixth elder's Xian Qi defense. The third elder shouted, "Supreme Solitary Eagle, please be lenient." He flew forward and helped the sixth elder retreat. The solitary eagle completely ignored him. His eyes were filled with a murderous intent that almost condensed into a solid substance. His 10 fingers fiercely clawed at the sixth elder. The Supreme Solitary Eagle was very, very angry. It could be said that he was extremely angry. He had been researching the eagle transformation technique for tens of years. In recent years, he could be considered to have reached the threshold of a breakthrough. However, he had encountered a bottleneck that he could not overcome with his own strength. This time, he had finally obtained the guidance of an expert, found June Moxie, and unexpectedly obtained this extremely strange and ingenious technique. For a moment, his mind and spirit were intoxicated, and he was immersed in it. However, he did not expect that in such a short period of time, someone would actually make a move on June Moxie in front of him. Wasn't this the same as asking for Solitary Eagle's life? If this brat were to die, or even be crippled, this old man's eagle transformation technique would be wasted. Not to mention that the mysterious expert would definitely hold him responsible. As for learning from that expert, even if that expert was willing to teach him, the Supreme Solitary Eagle would not have the face to learn it. The sixth elder had been welcomed by Jun Wui. Solitary Eagle's cultivation was naturally aware of it. However, he had been painstakingly pondering over the changes in the technique at that time. So, how could he have had the time to pay attention to this bullshit elder? Solitary Eagle had been engrossed in his research. In fact, even if the Silver Blizzard City's Supreme Master had come in person, he would still have ignored him. In fact, he would have waited until the end of his research before considering whether or not to pay attention to him. However, in such a short period of time, June Moxie had unexpectedly been attacked. And, Solitary Eagle had not been able to react in time. This couldn't help but make Solitary Eagle's heart tremble with fear. Fortunately, this brat's strength was extraordinary, and he had barely managed to block the attack. If he had not been able to block it, therefore, Solitary Eagle's killing intent had been aroused. He dared to obstruct my practice of a peerless martial technique. This kind of behavior is no different from cutting off my future path. This hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. June Moxie had racked his brains to invite Solitary Eagle to take charge of the June family's residence. However, even he hadn't expected that he would have such a powerful effect on the first day. Solitary Eagle's 10 fingers moved forward with an awe-inspiring murderous intent. The sixth elder had painstakingly laid down a heavy line of defense. However, Solitary Eagle's irresistible force had long since been broken through. When the sixth elder had made his seventh somersault, Solitary Eagle's hands seemed to have cut through the air. Suddenly, he accelerated once again. Like a meteor, he crashed into the sixth elder's chest. At the same time, the third elder's help had just arrived. Solitary Eagle's body collapsed, and he fiercely welcomed the attack with his flesh and blood. Bang! The third elder was sent flying. Solitary Eagle's body also swayed a few times. The tyrannical supreme Xian Qi broke through the sixth elder's protective Xian Qi like a hot knife through butter, and heavily struck his chest. A few cracking sounds were heard. It was hard to tell how many of the sixth elder's ribs had been broken. The sixth elder spouted a mouthful of dark red blood, and the white beard on his chest was immediately dyed red. Judging from the color of the blood, it was obvious that his internal organs had been injured. In fact, even his 5 internal organs had been injured. The sixth elder rolled twice like a rubber ball. Then, he couldn't stabilize his body, and fell into the flowering shrubs with a bang sound. He rolled twice, and crashed into a flowering tree. Then, he stood up shakily with the help of the tree trunk. Blood continued to flow from his mouth, and his face was full of resentment. Why? The sixth elder opened his mouth. Blood was flowing out of his mouth. Mu Shuatong stepped forward to help him. However, the sixth elder waved his hand to stop him. He endured the pain in his body, and gritted his teeth as he asked. This question was exactly what the third elder, Mu Shuatong, and the little princess of the Silver Blizzard City, Han Yen Meng, wanted to ask. They couldn't figure out why Solitary Eagle wanted to kill the sixth elder. Even if the sixth elder had offended him with his words, he wouldn't have taken his life. After all, killing the sixth elder would be tantamount to forming an irreconcilable enmity with the Silver Blizzard City. So, would it really be worth it? This old man has always done things as he pleases. This old man can kill thousands of small shrimps like you with a wave of his hand. You've lived for so many years, but you don't even understand these rules. So, what qualifications do you have to ask this old man why? Do you deserve it? Chapter 224. Solitary Eagle's words were exactly the same as what the sixth elder had just said to Jun Wui. The taste of mockery was undoubtedly much greater than before. The words he had just spoken were still echoing in his ears, but in the blink of an eye, they had been returned to the person he had just humiliated. The sixth elder's face turned red with anger, and he almost died on the spot. A small shrimp like you actually dares to come to this old man's territory and behave atrociously. You even dare to imitate this old man's words and shamelessly say that this and that are not worthy? You actually dare to ask why after this old man has attacked? Didn't you just say that you want to leave this old man's corpse intact? How can I not give you this opportunity? This is really a big joke. Surnamed Shao, do you really think that your Silver Blizzard City is invincible? In my opinion, apart from that old man Han Feng Shui, everyone else is trash. The entire city is trash. Solitary Eagle folded his hands behind his back and slowly walked 2 steps forward. His eagle-like eyes looked at the sixth elder's aggrieved and sullen face, and suddenly asked with interest, "What? This is what I mean, do you have any different opinions? Let me ask you, is there any truth in what I'm saying? Are you convinced?" The sixth elder fiercely stared at Solitary Eagle and tightly pursed his lips. He didn't say anything, but his eyes had already explained everything. Surnamed Shao, as long as you say that you are not convinced, this old man will immediately go and destroy that magnificent jewel hall, and behead all the people from your Silver Blizzard City who have come to Tianxiang. Including your 2 brothers, the 2 descendants of your Shao family, and this little girl. Ha ha ha, very good, very good, there aren't too many high-level people from the Silver Blizzard City who have come to Tianxiang, so it won't be too troublesome. You tell me, this old man doesn't dare to do it. Solitary Eagle laughed fiercely. Now, don't pretend to be deaf and dumb, this old man will ask you again, are you not convinced? Solitary Eagle's eyes revealed a cruel look. Solitary Eagle, killing people is but a matter of nodding your head. For the sake of the old city lord, please show some mercy so that we can meet again in the future. The third elder shouted in a deep voice. Bah, this has nothing to do with you. For the sake of that old man Han Feng Shui, I've been merciful and didn't take this little shrimp's life. Just because he said he would leave my corpse intact, how could I let him off so easily? Han Feng Shui's face. Don't talk about others, but don't talk about yourselves. You've come here, so why don't you give me some face? Why don't you show some mercy and let the Jun family go? If you have the guts to be domineering in my territory, I will naturally accompany you. Now you still have the nerve to ask me to hold back. You want me to hold back? Sure. As long as this surname Shao answers me, I'll let you off. Solitary Eagle waved his hand without turning his head. Now, even your life is in his mouth. This old man will never ask a third time. The Solitary Eagle said slowly in a deep voice. Now, answer. He was so angry that he wanted to die immediately. This extreme humiliation had numbed the sixth elder's body. He even wanted to cut off his own heart and end his life, but he couldn't. Because Solitary Eagle had made it very clear that the lives of the Silver Blizzard City's higher-ups in the Tianxiang city depended on his words. He absolutely believed that this madman, Solitary Eagle, would do what he said. If he really said that he didn't agree, then these people would all be buried here. Even if Solitary Eagle really did it, the Silver Blizzard City wouldn't be able to do anything to this old monster. This humiliation, he had no choice but to bear it. Even until now, he still didn't understand how he had suddenly offended Solitary Eagle, and how he had offended him so badly. But now was obviously not the time to think about this. I. The sixth elder's lips opened and closed a few times. Finally, he closed his eyes, and a tear slowly flowed from the corner of his eye. I agree. After saying this word, the sixth elder closed his eyes and fell backwards. Very good. You're a little shrimp, so I'll be magnanimous and not bicker with you. Solitary Eagle smiled cruelly. He slowly turned around, and his eyes swept over the third elder, Mu Shuetong, and the little princess. Then, he suddenly glared at them. Who else doesn't agree? I don't agree. Bullying the weak isn't something a strong person should do. If you want to kill me, then do it. Let me appreciate the demeanor of one of the 8 great masters. Mu Shuetong suddenly stepped forward, and looked at Solitary Eagle without the slightest hint of fear in his eyes. I also don't agree. The little princess, Han Yen Meng, stepped forward, and looked at Solitary Eagle with an unconvinced look on her face. Ah. So, the Silver Blizzard City really doesn't fear death. Not bad, not bad. Solitary Eagle smiled playfully. Today, I've opened my eyes. The 2 old men are shrinking their heads, and the 2 young ones are unconvinced. Do they think that I, an old man, don't have the habit of bullying the younger generation? I'm not like some people who use their faces as their butts to bully juniors who aren't as good as them. Don't worry, that Tian Xian boy, and you, little girl, I'm giving Han Feng Shui Han face today. I won't lower myself to your level, but if you dare to speak up again, I'll break your legs. Solitary Eagle didn't pay any more attention to the 2 people after he finished speaking. His pair of eagle eyes stared at the 6th elder, and Lengleng smiled. The 6th elder was a spirit Xian expert. So, he had woken up at this time. However, he had just woken up when he happened to hear the great Master Falcon's resentful and sarcastic words. This had made him so angry that he had fainted again. To be able to make a master of the Xinxian level faint with just a few words, the solitary eagle's ability to insult people was probably only below that of Jun Dashao. Solitary eagle, today, you attacked my brother for no reason, and injured him. There was no enmity between us, and you suddenly attacked him. You must give the Silver Blizzard City an explanation. The third elder had just recovered from the shock of the solitary eagle, and hadn't had the time to speak. The solitary eagle laughed arrogantly, and swayed back and forth, attacked for no reason. Your brother wanted to leave me with an intact corpse, and if this is considered for no reason, then what is considered as for no reason? Do I have to be killed by him for it to count? The third elder couldn't help but be at a loss for words. He had been indignant about the solitary eagle's aggressiveness, and had spoken without thinking. But now, he recalled that his third brother had used the matter to provoke the solitary eagle. If the target of the provocation hadn't been the solitary eagle, then perhaps someone else would have died at his hands. Seeing the third elder at a loss for words, the solitary eagle felt very refreshed, and continued to press his advantage, speaking of an explanation. Jun Wui had also asked him for an explanation, and what did this great master of the Silver Blizzard City say? And now, you're asking me for an explanation. Tell me, what explanation should I give you? How should I give you an explanation? Jun Moxie laughed. The sixth elder has already spoken very clearly about the so-called explanation, and it's still ringing in my ears. It's thought-provoking, and lingering for 3 days. What explanation do I need? When I'm not as strong as you, you don't need to give me an explanation. But when I have enough strength to suppress you, I also don't need to give you an explanation. Isn't strength the best explanation? This is your Silver Blizzard City's way of doing things. What, now that you're not as strong as me, you want to speak the truth and reason? Don't tell me that the Silver Blizzard City has taken all the good things in the world. It's true that a man's mouth has 2 skins, and his words are always reasonable. The little princess, Han Yen Meng, heard Jun Dashao's interruption, and couldn't help but look at him. She felt that this man was somewhat familiar, and couldn't help but stare at him with her big round eyes. I've never seen this man before, so why does he seem so familiar? The third elder suddenly turned his head, looked at Jun Moxie, and snorted twice. Then, he turned to the solitary eagle. Solitary eagle, would you please calm down for a moment, and let's talk in private? The solitary eagle snorted, but didn't reply. His feet didn't move, but he floated over 50 feet away, and stood in the corner of the wall. The third elder told Mu Shuetong to take care of the sixth elder, and then followed after him, and whispered something. Even if someone had the guts to eavesdrop on the conversation between the 2 Xinxians, it would be difficult for them to hear anything. Hey, girl, what are you looking at? Did you fall in love with this young master because I'm so handsome? Jun Moxie's heart skipped a beat when he saw this girl staring at him. I hope she doesn't recognize me. I won't stand on my side if she recognizes me. Humph. Han Yen Meng wrinkled her delicate nose, and exposed a disdainful expression. She was fuming with anger, but didn't say anything. She didn't even look at Jun Moxie. She had seen Jun Moxie when Jun Dashao had just drilled out of the ground. His face was extremely filthy. Moreover, Jun Dashao had been completely naked at that time. So, the girl was even more embarrassed to look at him. Later on, he had wrapped a piece of cloth around his body. But, he had smeared blood on his face. So, she wouldn't have been able to see anything even if she had wanted to. Therefore, she hadn't been able to recognize that this rich young master in front of her was the violent naked man from that day. Is this young Yao's younger sister? Jun Wui looked at Han Yen Meng, and asked Mu Shuetong in an excited voice. Yes, she's also the city lord's youngest daughter. Her nickname is Meng. Mu Shuetong faintly smiled, and then asked, Wu Yi, is your injury really as the sixth elder said? Very similar. Jun Wui was lost in thought as he looked at Han Yen Meng. He sighed and replied, Yes, Brother Mu. I believe that Wu Yi will be able to move his legs after some time. Mu Shuetong's happiness was sincere. Jun Wui naturally understood that. But, he couldn't speak the entire truth at this moment. He trusted Mu Shuetong. But, how could he trust the other people present? Therefore, he had to hold back. He would rather find an opportunity to apologize to Brother Mu in the future. But, he couldn't rashly reveal the Jun family's biggest secret. As long as Mu Shuetong could send the news that he had recovered, he would be able to comfort Han Yanyao. This had already gone against his original intention. Chapter 225. Brother Mu, thank you very much. Jun Wui said in a low voice. Are you Jun Wui, third brother Jun? I've heard my sister talk about you almost every day, hee hee. Han Yen Meng tilted her head and looked at Jun Wui. Then, she suddenly asked, my sister thinks of you every day, so why don't you go to see her? Don't you know the address of the Silver Blizzard City? I can tell you. Jun Wui's face twitched. He slowly turned his face away, and said in a hoarse voice, I really want to go. I've been wanting to see her for the last 10 years. Oh. Han Yen Meng seemed to understand and nodded. However, she still didn't understand, so she asked, because of your leg? So you can't go? The doctors in the Silver Blizzard City are very good. Can I introduce 2 of them to you? Little princess, it's not that Wu Yi doesn't want to go. It's just that he won't be able to get within 300 miles of the Silver Blizzard City if he doesn't have tyrannical strength. Mu Shuetong sighed and explained. Why? The little princess opened her eyes wide, even I can come and go as I please. His martial arts are obviously much better than mine. Idiot. Jun Moxie snorted and turned his head away. This little girl is too naive, isn't she? She called me third uncle third brother a moment ago. It's obvious that she's taking advantage of me. How hateful. How can your nephew be so rude? Shouldn't he be calling me aunt? Han Yen Meng stuck out her tongue at Jun Moxie. Then, she turned to Jun Wui and complained, I'll go back and tell my sister that she'll teach him a lesson when she comes to the Jun family. She'll teach him good manners. Your sister will come to the Jun family. As soon as he heard this, Jun Wui was stunned. In a split second, he felt both happiness and bitterness in his heart. He was very excited, but the tip of his nose was sour. For a moment, he had mixed feelings. Of course. She wants to marry you so much, so she naturally has to come to the Jun family. Elder sister has painstakingly cultivated for so many years just to marry you. Han Yen Meng raised her small face and clasped her hands behind her back as she spoke in a matter-of-fact manner. Hee hee. Jun Wui's eyes were a little moist. Third Master San was so excited that he didn't know what to say anymore. After 10 years, I finally know her feelings for me. She is still thinking about me, still missing me, but can you tell me about your sister? Little sister, Jun Wui leaned forward, and spoke in an urgent tone. His eyes were filled with fervor. Of course, no problem, but... Han Yen Meng clasped her hands behind her back and jumped up proudly. She rolled her eyes and pointed at Jun Moxie. Let him call me aunt first, and I'll tell you. He's your nephew, and you're my future brother-in-law. If he calls me aunt, there's no difference in seniority, right? Fuck. Before Jun Wui could say anything, he heard a curse. Then, Jun Moxie disappeared with a whoosh. Why did this fire burn me? I've long suspected that this little girl is not easy to deal with, but I didn't expect it to come so soon. Damn it, I can't make heads or tails of it. I can be your father in both my previous and current lives combined, and I have to call you aunt? Damn it, if you piss me off, I'll strip you naked and make you call me husband. Jun Moxie escaped angrily, but he didn't return to his courtyard. Instead, he left the Jun family's residence. With Solitary Eagle at the Jun family's residence, nothing could go wrong. Therefore, Jun Dashao had to plan something else to adjust his mood, or at least to ease his depressed mood. Jun Moxie's character was fierce, ruthless, and stubborn. He did whatever he wanted, kept his promises, and would rather break than bend. These were all his distinguishing characteristics. However, he also had another characteristic, and that was that he would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. The sixth elder's tyrannical behavior had made Jun Moxie furious. You can bully others, you can be tyrannical, but you can never bully me. Otherwise, I'll repay you 100-fold. Although Solitary Eagle had taught the sixth elder a great lesson, Jun Moxie's murderous intent had long been aroused. In the eyes of others, Solitary Eagle had gone too far, but in Jun Moxie's eyes, it was not enough. Far from enough. Revenge must be taken with one's own hands, and hatred must be paid in person. The prestige of the evil monarch is not something that can be offended by anyone. Even if this was a different world, even if his strength in this world was still very weak, even if the person who offended him possessed strength close to the peak of this world, the evil monarch was still the evil monarch. Solitary Eagle's actions were not equivalent to my actions. My own revenge must be taken with my own hands. Using other people's hands to vent my anger is not what a man should do, and it's definitely not the evil monarch's style. Therefore, Jun Moxie must take revenge. Therefore, he took advantage of this inopportune moment to leave the Jun family's residence. No one would suspect him of leaving at this time. The third elder and Solitary Eagle walked to one side. Both of them looked very calm, but in reality, they had a bellyful of doubts. Solitary Eagle was puzzled, although the Jun family was considered to have a high status, but this status was only limited to the Tianxiang Empire. If placed in the entire continent, the Jun family would at most be considered a rich and powerful family in the secular world. There was still a huge gap between the Jun family and those Super Xian Qi families. How could such a family provoke the Silver Blizzard City? Jun Mo Xia hadn't missed a single word that the sixth elder had said a moment ago. So, he naturally understood that the sixth elder hadn't done so because of the Shao family's young master's humiliation. In fact, his original intention was to humiliate the Jun family. But what did the Jun family do to deserve a person with the cultivation of Shenxian to come knocking on their door and cause trouble? Moreover, this person had the backing of a colossus like the Silver Blizzard City. Supreme Eagle was simply unable to understand the situation no matter how hard he thought about it. The third elder also had a bellyful of questions. Solitary Eagle was one of the 8 great masters, so when did he become the Jun family's protector? Why did he not hesitate to offend the Silver Blizzard City in order to protect the Jun family? Solitary Eagle is not an impulsive person. How did the Jun family manage to invite Solitary Eagle? This is too puzzling. Is there anything else I don't know about? The tragedy of the Jun family wouldn't have happened if the Solitary Falcon had been behind the Jun family back then. In fact, Han Yanyao and Jun Wuyi might have been in harmony with each other a long time ago. Otherwise, the two families wouldn't be like fire and water right now. In fact, there would have been mountains of corpses and seas of blood between them. Dare I ask the Solitary Eagle, why are you here? The third elder's attitude was very respectful, and it was impossible to tell that the person he was talking to was the enemy of the Silver Blizzard City. I haven't asked you yet. Why are you here? What is the relationship between the Silver Blizzard City and the Jun family? Why is that brother of yours disregarding his status, and lowering himself to provoke the younger generation? Why is he bringing shame upon us? The Solitary Eagle snorted and asked. You don't know the cause and effect? The third elder's eyes widened. This man in front of him left him speechless. He doesn't know anything, and yet he's trying to act as a pillar. What do I know? Why would I ask you if I knew? The Solitary Eagle understood a little, and faintly felt that he had stepped into a big trouble this time. He felt that something was wrong. The third elder didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he recounted the grievances between the Silver Blizzard City and the June family in detail. Of course, he didn't mention the internal strife of the Silver Blizzard City. The solitary eagle was dumbfounded as he listened. After a long while, he angrily stamped his feet, snorted twice, and unconsciously turned in a circle. Damn it, no wonder that brat did everything he could to make this old man agree to stay with the June family. He even racked his brains to make this old man promise to keep the June family safe for a year. This June family looks so ordinary, but it turns out that there's a lightning ambush waiting for me. I've boarded a pirate ship this time. What a treacherous little devil. He's clearly trying to drag me into this mess, and I have no choice but to comply. The solitary eagle was one of the 8 great masters, and others might fear the Silver Blizzard City, or even Han Feng Shui, but the solitary eagle wasn't one of them. The solitary eagle wasn't afraid of the Silver Blizzard City, but he was a little angry. He was angry that June Moxie had deceived him with his flowery words, and had fooled him into becoming a scapegoat. What the hell is this? However, he thought about it, and realized that he wouldn't have reacted if he had been told in advance. Even if he wasn't afraid of the Silver Blizzard City or Han Feng Shui, he might not have been willing to provoke this trouble. The world would think that he was afraid of Han Feng Shui if he were to go back on his words, and the solitary eagle had no choice but to comfort himself. Isn't it just the Silver Blizzard City? I've long been displeased with that old man Han Feng Shui, and now that I need an opponent to practice with, I might as well use the Silver Blizzard City as a practice target. Moreover, I can't just sit back and watch that little thief June get rid of me. This is an important matter for my future progress, so what if I offend the Silver Blizzard City? But thinking like this, the Silver Blizzard City is full of experts, and Xinxian has at least a dozen of them. Moreover, there's also the 3rd most powerful great master in the world, the coiling tiger. Even the solitary eagle felt a little lacking in confidence in the face of such a force. He could only try his best to encourage himself. It's nothing. As long as the Shui Han Manor doesn't get involved, the Silver Blizzard City's strength will be limited. He despised himself as he thought of this. The Silver Blizzard City and the Shui Han Manor have always been incompatible like fire and water. How could they join hands to deal with the insignificant June family? What place in the world is there for these 2 families to be enemies with? How can I keep thinking about these things? Even if I take 10,000 steps back, that little thief June's mysterious master is more than enough to deal with any crisis. Even Han Feng Shui and Li Ju Tian wouldn't be enough to deal with him. If only I had that strength. Don't say any more, go on your way. The solitary eagle became excited as he thought of the young Master June, and then became somewhat dejected. Then, he rolled his eyes, and spoke in a somewhat exasperated manner. This old man is here with the June family. If you come and cause trouble again, don't blame me for being impolite. With him around, what else do I need to think about? That's not right. How can I let him personally make a move? I should be making more moves to gain more impressions. It would be best if Han Feng Shui came in person so that the old man could make a move. It would be best if old Han was beaten to a pulp. Solitary eagle gloated as he thought to himself, I'll be watching you make a fool of yourself. Is that so? The 3rd elder frowned. He had wanted to get some information from Solitary Eagle, but he didn't expect this guy to just shut the door. What, you don't believe me? Solitary Eagle glared. The 3rd elder thought to himself, what kind of person is this? You just humiliated us, and even put my 6th brother in a difficult situation. Even now, you can't find a single word of truth from your mouth, and you still want me to believe you? You really think everyone else is a fool? Supreme Eagle, the 3rd elder cupped his hands in a friendly manner. Today's matter is mostly due to our lack of skill, so it is inconvenient for me to comment. But the Supreme Eagle has humiliated the Silver Blizzard City, and I will definitely come back to avenge it. The Great Elder will definitely make arrangements. I will take my leave now. I, Solitary Eagle, dare to cause trouble, and I am not afraid of trouble. As for your Great Elder, it should be Xiao Xingyun, right? Humph, he dares to find trouble with me. If he really wants an explanation, then tell old Han to come here himself. Solitary Eagle snorted heavily. He, I have long heard of Xiao Xingyun and Xiao Buyu. They are known as the twin walls of the Silver Blizzard City. They fly through the clouds and rain, and soar through the 9 heavens. Everyone in the world admires them. This old man has always wanted to see how these 2 old fogies fly through the clouds and rain. The third elder's expression didn't change as he smiled and said, I don't think the Supreme Eagle will be disappointed in the future. Farewell. The third elder cupped his hands in obeisance, and called out to Mu Shuatong. Then, he picked up the 6th elder's body, and left with Han Yenmeng. He suddenly turned around when he reached the door. He looked at the Solitary Eagle and slowly said, There is one thing that I didn't want to say, but the Supreme Eagle is a heroic man. So, I don't think you will mind. It is said that the young master of the Shui Han Manor came to the capital last time, and took a fancy to a woman. And that woman is the Jun family's daughter-in-law, Guan Qing Han. She is currently at the Jun family's residence. So, the Supreme Eagle will have to make preparations in advance for this. I'm afraid that the Shui Han Manor won't be as easy to get along with as my Silver Blizzard City. The third elder smiled faintly as he finished speaking. Then, he walked out of the door without looking back. Han Yenmeng smiled sweetly and waved at Jun Wui before she left. Third brother Jun, I'll come over to listen to your stories if I have time. And, I'll make sure that your nephew calls me Little Aunt next time. Otherwise, I'll go back and tell my sister that you and your nephew are working together to bully me. Jun Wui smiled and waved as he saw her off. However, the Solitary Eagle, was left dumbfounded. He was thoroughly dumbfounded. So, it wasn't just a pirate ship. This old man had practically fallen into the 10,000 li Great Swamp. And now, I can't pull my feet out even if I want to, the Southern Heavens Blood Soul Raising Pillar, and the Northern Heavens Silver Blizzard City. These 2 are the most powerful forces in the world today. And, this little Jun family has provoked them. Just for a few moves, I sold myself. Moreover, I got myself into such a huge trouble. Oh my God. The Solitary Eagle stood in a daze for a while. Then, he suddenly became furious. He roared like a thunderclap, Little thief Jun. You little bastard. Get your ass out here. There was silence all around, and no one responded. The Solitary Eagle flew around several courtyards of the Jun family, but couldn't find any trace of Jun Moxie. He angrily returned to Jun Wui's courtyard, and cursed under his breath, Little bastard, if this old man doesn't skin you alive when I catch you, then consider yourself lucky. You've tricked me to death. Jun Wui was naturally very clever. He had hidden in his bedroom as soon as he saw that the situation wasn't good, and had gone to study his swordsmanship. Only the Solitary Eagle was left panting and sulking. In fact, he was so depressed that he wanted to kill someone. He was indeed depressed, but it was only because he wanted to kill someone, that's all. The Solitary Eagle might have been shaken if the news of the third elder had been brought up earlier. After all, the Silver Blizzard City and the Shui Han Manor were 2 of the most terrifying forces in the world. In fact, even the great master Yun Bichen might not be able to deal with their common enemy. So, what more the Solitary Eagle? However, the third elder had first mentioned the world-shaking and world-shattering expert before he could talk about this matter. Although he was merely inquiring about this information, but he had still managed to remind the Solitary Falcon of this matter. And, this master was able to silently make a vast forest disappear with just a wave of his hand. So, even if Han Feng Shui and Li Ju Tian were to join hands, they wouldn't be able to deal with such a master. The solitary eagle had nowhere to vent his anger on the little thief June. So, he didn't care too much about it. It's good to have a master as your backer. Everything is as steady as Mount Tai. You're drifting in the wind and the rain. As for the little thief June that great Master Falcon had been searching for, no one knew where he had run off to. It was already dusk by the time they left the June family's residence. The Silver Blizzard City's high-ranking officials were silent. Even the lively princess, Han Yen Meng, was like a gourd that had its mouth cut off. She didn't utter a single word. The sixth elder was lying on Mu Shuetong's back. He was meditating on his Xian Qi, and his spirit was much better than before. After all, this old man had the same cultivation as Shen Xian. So, his injuries were serious. But, his life wouldn't be in any danger as long as his Xian Qi was still working. In fact, he had used his Xian Qi to firmly wrap the broken bones in his chest. So, it was only a matter of time before he fully recovered. However, the humiliation that he had suffered today was the greatest humiliation that the sixth elder had ever experienced in his entire life. Every time he recalled the time when he was forced to say the word "convinced" in front of everyone at the June family's residence, the feeling of humiliation would be worse than death. The sixth elder hadn't spoken a single word along the way. However, his upper and lower teeth had bitten his lips so hard that they were dripping with blood. Dark red blood was flowing out of his mouth and dripping onto Mu Shuetong's back. His eyes were also bloodshot. I'm not a man if I don't take revenge for this. Sixth brother. The third elder wanted to say something. But, he eventually sighed and swallowed his words. He and the sixth elder had been together for more than 30 years. So, they had a faint connection with each other. So, he was able to clearly understand the sixth elder's thoughts. So, he couldn't help but say in a heavy tone, "But, that's solitary eagle." "I know, third brother. I know what you want to say. My defeat at the hands of solitary eagle isn't shameful. Is that so? I'm afraid that I'll bring about a fatal disaster if I insist on doing things my own way." The sixth elder's voice was low. His face had a mournful expression as he smiled, "But, a soldier can be killed, but not humiliated. I. At this point, the great master of his generation, Shen Xian, started to choke with sobs. It was obvious that this humiliation had provoked him to such an extent. "Sixth elder, you endured this humiliation in order to protect all of our lives. I respect you very much. Even though I'm not very talented, but I know how easy it was to say no in a situation like that. But, I know how difficult it was to say respect." Mu Shuetong spoke carefully in order to pave the way for his next words. Seeing the third elder's face reveal a look of appreciation, the sixth elder's face calmed down a lot. It was obvious that his words had been very effective. Then, he changed the topic and said, "Speaking of humiliation, the humiliation that the sixth elder inflicted upon the June family wasn't light. If you hadn't been so aggressive at the beginning, then that solitary eagle wouldn't have." Mu Shuetong finally spoke the words that he truly wanted to say. Mu Shuetong had long been dissatisfied with the sixth elder's tyranny. However, the other party was an elder. Moreover, his position was also much higher than Mu Shuetong's. Therefore, Mu Shuetong had no choice but to be tactful and beat around the bush. However, even though Mu Shuetong tried his best to restrain himself, his tone had become somewhat out of control. Chapter 227. Shuetong. The third elder shouted. Although he thought that Mu Shuetong's words were reasonable, and that the sixth elder had brought this upon himself, but now was not the right time to provoke him. "Put me down. I'm not dead yet, so let me walk," the sixth elder shouted angrily, "You're not qualified to teach me how to behave. Even your master wouldn't dare to talk to me like this. Who do you think you are? You should weigh your own weight before you speak. What qualifications do you have to comment on this old man's way of doing things?" Mu Shuetong's face turned pale as he thought, if you really have such backbone, then why didn't you admit defeat when you faced the solitary eagle? Now, you only know how to vent your anger on me. Do you really think that I want to carry you on my back? The sixth elder struggled to get down from Mu Shuetong's back while Mu Shuetong was hesitating. However, his broken bones were pulled, and his forehead was dripping with cold sweat. You really have backbone. Haha, you're worthy of being called an elder of the Silver Blizzard City. If you had been as tough as you were when you faced that little eagle just now and weren't so despicable in your actions, I might have admired you a little. The third elder hadn't even had the time to persuade him when a cold voice suddenly resounded. It was full of mockery. At the same time, between heaven and earth, a huge pressure suddenly appeared out of nowhere and suddenly fell down. A black-clothed masked man suddenly appeared in front of everyone in an extremely strange way, like a god descending to the world, and also like the incarnation of a ghost. A pair of cold eyes flickered with a dense, cold light. It's him. It's him. The little princess Han Yen Meng screamed in fear. She trembled as she hid behind the third elder, and grabbed the corner of the third elder's clothes. She was obviously terrified of this black-clothed man who had suddenly appeared. It's him. He injured Brother Xiao, and he also hit me. The third elder's heart sank. What I've been afraid of has come. The real trouble has finally come. An even more terrifying nightmare than the solitary eagle had arrived. The Silver Blizzard City's leaders could clearly feel this overwhelming oppressive force, and all four of them trembled in fear. The little princess, Han Yen Meng, was the most unperturbed among them. The little girl was also afraid of the ferocious might of the black-clothed man. But, it was mainly because of the deep impression that this man had left on Xiao Fengwu. Moreover, she had also recalled the awkwardness of witnessing a man who was different from her own at that time. But, she didn't have much fear towards an irresistible powerhouse. However, the other three people from the Silver City were experienced, and had sharp eyes. It seemed like it would be harder than ascending to the heavens for the four of them to leave this place alive today. Are you people from the Silver Blizzard City? The black-clothed masked man held his hands behind his back, and looked up at the sky. It seemed as if he was about to ride the wind and fly away. His voice was clear and bright, and didn't carry the slightest trace of a mortal's aura. Yes, may I ask who you are? The third elder straightened his body with great effort, and respectfully cupped his hands. In the face of such a strong person, any kind of courtesy was necessary. In fact, it wasn't strange to be overly courteous at this time. After all, there was no harm in being respectful at this time. Oh. The black-clothed masked man let out a long, oh, sound. It was hard to tell whether he was happy or angry. After a long time, he said as if he was sleep-talking, I used to be acquainted with several generations of city lords of the Silver Blizzard City. I also met Han Feng Shui once. Time passes in the blink of an eye. Who would have thought that the Silver Blizzard City would have fallen to such a state? Is it fate that makes fools of people? Or is it true that wealth doesn't last more than 3 generations? He shook his head as if he was very regretful. He then sighed and said, how sad, how lamentable. It turns out that Senior and the old city lord are old friends. Then, we are not outsiders. Ha ha. The third elder became even more respectful. However, he was thinking in his heart, which old city lord is he talking about? Is it the 2nd generation? Or is it the 1st generation? Oh my God, this man must be at least 60 years old, he really is a peerless master. A junior from the Silver Blizzard City broke into my practice area, and disturbed my practice. So, I only punished him a little. But, you, as his elders, don't think of teaching your own descendants. Instead, you only know how to help a villain do evil, and wantonly implicate unrelated people. Is this the rule of the Silver Blizzard City that has been passed down from generation to generation? The black-clothed masked man's voice gradually became stern. The third elder and the others suddenly felt their hearts beating like drums. They were extremely frightened. Only the little princess, Han Yen Meng, was truly simple-minded. She didn't feel the danger in front of her. Her eyes were full of confusion, and her heart was filled with an extremely strange feeling. She couldn't reconcile the image of that violent naked man with the image of this dignified senior. Is this really the same person? Was this unparalleled master, who was filled with an otherworldly aura, really that violent man who was completely naked from head to toe? Why is there such a big contrast if they are the same person? Is it only because he is wearing clothes? The black-clothed masked man talked for a while. He seemed to be getting angrier the more he talked. Finally, he heavily snorted and said, "I heard that you are tracking me. Do you want to find me for revenge? I have come to you today to give you this opportunity. Please forgive me, Senior. The cause of this matter is that our son and daughter were taught a lesson outside. We have more or less understood the reason behind it. But, we can't ignore it as an elder. Moreover, the old city lord and the others have earnestly entrusted us with this matter before we left. But, I hope that the senior won't take offense to this matter." The third elder smiled faintly. He didn't deny it, but spoke in a reasonable manner. Who wouldn't ask about the situation if their child was bullied outside? Even if they know the reason behind it, they will still demand an explanation. The third elder was worthy of being called an experienced man. His words were watertight, but also extremely respectful. In fact, it was difficult to pinch the man's sore spot. "Is that so? I wouldn't have taken it to heart if that was the case. But, you went to the Jun family in the name of tracking me down. Wouldn't it be my fault if the Jun family was humiliated because of this?" The dignified great master Shen Xian raised his hand against a child. "Don't you have any shame?" The black-masked man's anger soared as he stared at the sixth elder, Great Master Shen Xian. "You actually injured a child. How awe-inspiring. How evil. Senior, I'm afraid that your words are too arbitrary. The Jun family and the Silver Blizzard City have long been entangled with each other. In fact, the relationship between the two is quite deep. The inside story is even more difficult to explain in a few words. Senior doesn't know the cause of the past, and yet you rashly ask such a question. You don't have the demeanor of a senior." The sixth elder choked and coughed. But, he raised his head and didn't retreat. The humiliation he had received from the solitary eagle had thoroughly swept the sixth elder's face to the ground. He had just left the Jun family's residence, and now he was being questioned by an unprecedented and peerless expert. The sixth elder was on the verge of collapsing. The sixth elder felt that he had run into all the unlucky things in the world today. How come he couldn't think of anything good to say? This old man has lived long enough to humiliate me again and again. You're really making me angry. Even if your cultivation is higher, the most you can do is kill me. I can't bear to do that. Apart from death, what else can you do? I'm going to fight with you. You mean to say that this senior is meddling in other people's business? The black-masked man grunted heavily. Then, his body suddenly flashed, and he disappeared into thin air. He had completely disappeared without a trace. A living person had been standing right in front of them a moment ago, and then suddenly disappeared in the next moment. Forget about seeing this kind of qigong, they had never even heard of it before. In fact, even the legends hadn't been passed down like this. The third elder was the first to react. He couldn't help but be frightened out of his wits. He cried out involuntarily, "Senior, please have mercy. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.